What time do you have, sweet? 7:30 yet? 6:30 yet? Will?
It's 7:30 somewhere, but it's 6:30 here.
It's 6:30 now. No, I meant 6:30.
I've heard it's 5 o'clock somewhere also.
I think it'd be 5:30.
Oh, it's just 6:30. Should we wait a couple more minutes or?
You want me to go ahead and just read the rules of the road, and then we can.
Why don't you read everyone's rights?
All right. Well, number one, welcome. If this is your first time joining us virtually, or maybe the first time in a long time, you might notice that you're currently muted right now. And everybody is going to stay muted through the duration of the meeting, except for our committee co-chairs, Chuck and Craig, and any presenters as we move through the agenda. Following each presentation, as we move through the agenda, the co-chairs will call on members of the public who wish to speak. You can participate by going to the react icon on your device and pressing the raise hand button. It's not the wave or the thumbs up, those will disappear. Only press the raise hand button once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're calling in from the phone, it's star and the number 9 to raise your hand, and then followed by the star and 6 to unmute whenever you're called on. Everybody should be looking for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once one of the co-chairs calls on you. If you're having problems, the chat is available for technical support only. It is only to help with Zoom software problems, not to ask questions of the co-chairs or the presenters. They will never see those chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you may need to go to the participants section or the more section where you'll find the raise hand feature there. And finally, we encourage you not to raise your actual hand and wave at the screen to get our attention. If you're having problems, chat me. I'm here for support. And with that, I can hand it back over to Chuck and Craig, and they can get going.
Thanks. I'd like to welcome everyone to the April meeting of Community Board 8's Transportation Committee. I'm Chuck Warren, co-chair of the committee, and Craig Lader, my co-chair, is also here. We have a pretty good agenda today, so we should get right to it. First item on our agenda is a New York City DOT presentation of the 79th Street Select Bus Service route, M79, and we have the 79th Street SBS Capital Project presentation. We have the DOT folks here. Who wants to lead off? Is it Chris? Oh no, it's Alexander. Okay, why don't you go ahead? We should unmute Alexander.
Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out to be here. Thank you, Will. That was masterful in terms of laying out what the rules are. So as he said, please keep your comments and questions for the end. Also, you have a full agenda, so hopefully I don't take up too much of your time. Do I have permissions to save my screen? Yes, I do. Could I please get confirmation by like a show of thumbs up if you can see my screen?
We see you, Alex.
Beautiful, thank you. Okay, so my name is Alexander Altskin. I'm from the Transit Development Unit in DOT, and I'm here to talk to you about a capital project that we have currently in the works in partnership with DDC and MTA for you along 79th Street. The full project limits of this project are, also incorporate the west side, but I'm going to be just talking about the section that's in your district. Let's get into it. The way I'm going to go through this is I'm going to give you some background about work DOT previously did, from like a, transit and ped safety perspective along 79th back in 2017. Then I'm going to talk to you about, how those changes have performed, also from like a transit and a ped safety perspective. We'll also talk about some of the challenges that remain, in our opinion, along that corridor. And kind of in light of that, I'll give you, I'll be sharing site plans and details with you about the actual capital work that we're planning to do to kind of follow up this in-house work that we did, all those years ago. And then I'll let you know, what the dates are coming up in terms of next steps for that project. So I probably don't need to tell you folks much about 79th Street, but it's a major corridor, a major transit corridor within Upper Manhattan. As far as I'm concerned, the main thing for me is that it hosts the M79 Select Bus Service route, which is, one of the top busiest routes in Manhattan. It has about 13,000, 14,000 daily riders. Also, as far as like routes go, because it's a crosstown Manhattan route, it has very high ridership per route mile, among the highest in the city. And it's also because, it's a crosstown route. It connects to 4 subway lines. It connects to 16 other bus routes, including the M15 SBS, which, that is the busiest SBS route in Manhattan, and functions essentially as, like an additional subway line. All of this like exists because, you have major cultural destinations along the corridor, such as the Metropolitan Museum of Art and Central Park. As well as, hundreds of businesses and institutions. And kind of with all of this activity and all of this transit and all of these vehicles, just all of this, it unfortunately is not the safest of corridors in Manhattan. In the last 5 years, you've had 26 folks. And again, this is both sides. This isn't just on the east side, but you've had 26 people seriously injured or killed in the last 5 years. We'd like to get that number down to 0. And even I think in 2024, so last year, there was a fatal car crash on 2nd Ave and 79th in your district. So we're hoping that some of the changes that we're bringing could address some of the remaining safety concerns we have along 79th. For those of you that were around, this will probably, I don't know, this will be a trip down memory lane, or maybe I'm being too jokey. But this project we did back in 2017 was done in partnership with MTA because it was the launch of the M79 SBS. And to kind of put an SBS, line in, there's some things that DOT does to make sure that, this, what do you call this like bus rapid transit implementation goes successfully. Again, I'm showing you these numbers on here do include both the west side and the east side. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of where everything was. But with this project, a lot of this was actually focused more on the east side. I think all of these Q-jump lanes are on the east side. But we were able to put in those. If folks have questions about what exactly those do, please save that for the end. But what they do is they really help speed the buses up. On the west side, we were able to put in a full block of bus lane. All of this was supported by signal timing changes and improvements. In addition, a big thing that the Select Bus Service brought was off-board fare collection, which really speeds up the boarding times at all these bus stops. And we also were able to install some passenger amenities like real-time bus passenger information, which lets you know when the bus is coming, as well as bus shelters, seating, leaning bars, things like that. And after we put all of this in, of course, we monitor, well, what in the world is all of this, like, is it helping? And we saw positive things pretty much, across the board. Instances of bus bunching decreased. The dwell times of the buses at these bus stops, they decreased significantly, and that's mostly because of this off-board fare collection. We even saw a boost in the ridership of the M79 once we were able to put the SBS into service. It was not only transit that was seeing, improvements and benefits. Car travel times themselves decreased along the corridor. Bus speeds, which is a big thing we focus on in the transit development unit, those increased. And what's probably the most positive, because when the bus is running, on schedule, that's when it's reliable and predictable. The number of late buses decreased by 45%, which is big. And all of these changes have more or less, remained through all of these years since this implementation. So if you look at 2024, the bus speeds on the M79 SBS are still faster on average than the average route in Manhattan. And the other thing, I always like to focus on on-time performance. We would like to be at 100%, but we're at 81.5%, which is again outperforming the averages that we have in Manhattan. So from a transit perspective, the project has been a success. Although of course we can always do better. That is why we're trying to do some capital work to see if we can boost these improvements. Probably even more importantly for a lot of folks, though, is also the safety improvements that the previous work gave us and what, hopefully our upcoming work will do. And if we look at the numbers, and this presentation will be shared with you if you really want to dig into this table. But in summary, if you look at if you take the 5 years before we, did the street improvement project back in 2017, if you take the average of those years and you compare it to the averaged amount of everything since. So if you take the average from 2017 to 2024, and if you look, you can see that, these numbers keep getting lower as time goes on. So the improvement continues. But if you just take the averages between these two big chunks of time, pedestrian injuries are down 63%, cyclist injuries are down 17%. Of course, we'd like to see that higher, but if you look at the raw numbers, it's a fairly limited amount of cyclist injuries happening on an annual basis. Motor vehicle crashes are down 62%, and overall, just crashes, period. Total incidents, they're down 57%, which is, again, we want to get to zero, but 57 is a significant improvement. All that said, and all this like touting of successes, there's still challenges that remain, right? With the in-house work that we did, there's certain things that we just can't physically do. You need to our street isn't just like, I don't know how I would use this, but we don't just exist on one level, right? There's lots of utilities and things under the street. Things get complicated and not everything can be done kind of with paint and, quick in-house materials. It needs to be capital work. So there were some things we just couldn't do. And a lot of these things are the ped safety features. So, if you put something in paint and it, can only go as far as in terms of the benefits you gain from it. You really need to build everything out to see the full benefits. As I alluded to maybe like 1 minute ago, right? We can't really move curb lines when we do in-house work. So you still have a lot of really narrow sidewalks and a lot of crowding and bad circulation at certain bus stops. So we want to come in and try to address that. There is also bus operation issues that remain because we were unable to make a couple changes. And last but not least, there's also just state of good repair things that need to be fixed along 79th, from like an ADA perspective, from just roadway condition. To quickly, just these two photos I'm showing you. One is on the west side, and the reason I included it is from like a bus operation perspective. This is a bus stop, and the bus needs to be able to pull up to the curb to function properly. But I'm sure you see this, often trucks will park in there for an hour or 2 hours, whatever it is they need to do. The way we can kind of minimize that, right? You can't enforce everything with the built environment, but if we put in a bus bulb and suddenly there is no more stopping location for that truck because the bus stop exists now in the moving lane, you prevent that problem. And so you help the bus operate better, and you kind of help with the congestion. And then the photo you see at the bottom, we'll get to this. This is in your district. This is the eastbound stop at 5th Avenue. You have a super narrow sidewalk. You have lots of crowding there. You have bad circulation. And I think we'll probably even risk some like ADA non-compliance created by the pinch point on the other side of the fare machine. So that's those things. And so a project like takes all of these challenges into consideration, and again, have to tamper things and say that the numbers I'm showing here are the totals for the full project. Not all of these things are in your district, give or take about half are. But what this capital project is going to be doing is, well, first I'll say what we're I guess not going to be doing. What we're going to be keeping the same is we're keeping the same alignment of the bus lanes. I think the way that we looked at the numbers, the way they are now is good. We're keeping the same hours, and we're not changing any of the traffic patterns that we implemented back in 2017. So that's staying the same. But what we are doing is we're doing upgrades at pretty much every bus stop. give or take a few along the corridor. And when I say upgrading bus stops, I mean, we're putting in amenities, we're bringing everything up to standards. We're doing things that we couldn't do back in 2017. One of those things being installing bus pads pretty much anywhere that we're touching. Anything bus pads are those big rectangular like concrete things in the roadway, which just hold up a lot better over time with like heavy, bus use. And we're taking all of the various, medians that we have up and down, I guess, yeah, I mean, left and right along 79th to upgrade those crossings to be fully ADA compliant because some of them are outdated and they're just not up to par of where they should be. On top of that, those are things we're like fixing, adding, or reconstructing. What we're doing is we're also adding bus bulbs, like what I had just alluded to previously, talking about how it helps speed up buses and prevents the trucks from parking in our bus stops. We're adding 4 of those. One is actually here depicted in your district at that eastbound stop on 5th Avenue. To help with the pet safety issues, we're doing 13 sidewalk extensions, which is kind of like a tried and true DOT thing to put in. And there's also a landscaping, beautification, and green infrastructure element to this project that we're putting in 20+ trees. And not listed on here, we're also putting in some infiltration basins, which are like expanded kind of green areas that help with stormwater runoff. I don't know how big this is on your screen, and I don't want to mess up my thing by zooming in too much, but I'll just quickly walk you through like an example of one of these average treatments. This is specifically that eastbound stop at 5th Ave. So like I said earlier, the sidewalk is incredibly narrow. There's pinch points. There's no amenities at this stop. And also because of just its situation along the block, when buses stop here, unless cars let them through, they struggle to get back into the flow. And so the buses get delayed. And what we're doing here, we're putting in a bus bulb, which, alleviates quite a few of these problems. Like it's like starting left to right. Because we no longer have to pull over to the curb has kind of come to us. The bus no longer gets stuck waiting for cars to let it in. It just, stops in the lane and can keep going. Because we've now widened the sidewalk, we now finally have room to put in some amenities. So like seating for the most part, usually seating in bus shelters. Because we widen the sidewalk, we're able to, we get rid of those pinch points and circulation improves. Specifically at this location, because I know that the Ukrainian Institute has, requested it, we're going to be putting in distinctive bluestone paving. And when you look at the plans, you'll see there's a couple of locations adjacent to parks, adjacent to the Institute, where we're doing like special pavement treatment. And yeah, I mean, the other things on here are kind of self-explanatory, that the sidewalk is being widened, the people waiting on the bus are now not in the way of general foot traffic, and everything, of course, is being brought up to modern ADA compliance because that's the law. And it's just, what we need to be doing. So bear with me. I'm going to take you kind of intersection by intersection to kind of just list what we're doing at every intersection. I won't go into too much detail because I don't want to take up too much of your time. And you'll also have these plans to look at and email us questions afterward. So starting at that same intersection that I keep talking about, 5th Avenue and 79th. At the bottom here is this bus bulb that we're putting in. And right, like I just kind of went through, bus bulb isn't just bus bulb. There's a number of things that come with it. In addition, we're upgrading the bus stop opposite 79th Street from this one, the westbound stop. It's not getting a bulb or anything. The roadway width and the traffic patterns don't allow for that, but we're still working on the bus stop layouts, but we're trying to maximize benefits that we can bring. We're updating the ped ramps on the west side, so on the Central Park side, to make sure that they're fully compliant. And we're putting in some new trees wherever we can fit them in. When we get to Madison Avenue, here you have sidewalk extensions. And so, this shortens the crossing across both Madison Ave and 79th. It also improves the visibility of pedestrians when they're waiting to cross. And then similarly, there's 2 bus stops east of Madison Avenue. They are also both getting upgraded. Moving along, we get the Park Avenue. All the ped ramps at all four corners are getting, brought up to modern standards. And like I alluded quite a while ago at this point, the medians, right, where things are a bit kind of out of date and the ped refuges aren't in full compliance, both of them are being updated to the latest standards. Street trees are being put in. Once we get to Lexington, you'll see like a recurring pattern. Pretty much every intersection is getting new ped ramps, a new sidewalk at the corners. And here on the east side of Lexington, we're getting sidewalk extensions, again, for ped safety. And then the westbound bus stop here is also going to be getting, refurbishment, as is the eastbound one. Continuing, same thing, right? By the end of this, I'm going to be fairly repetitive. So this westbound bus stop is getting upgraded. We're fixing the ramps and updating them at all, at all the corners. And then just north of the northeast corner, we're putting in a stormwater infiltration basin, just to kind of, it's getting wetter and wetter in the world. So whatever green infrastructure we can install to help with stormwater runoff helps. And this was deemed a location by the engineers as, with potential for this. Continuing east, once we get to Second Avenue, same thing. We're updating all of the corners. We're updating the ped refuge on the south leg. All of this is, ped safety features. And you have two more stormwater infiltration basins coming in on the south side of 79th. At First Avenue, very similar to treatment to what we're doing at Second Avenue. You've got all the corners updated. You've got a sidewalk extension on the northwest corner, and then you've got additional ped safety improvements with these ped refuges in the middle of the street to shorten the crossings. York Avenue, we're redoing 3 intersections along York Avenue. This is where the bus turns around. We're redoing I guess, yeah, it's written small, but yeah, we're redoing the corners at 78th, at 79th, and at 80th, with the addition of sidewalk extensions on the northwest corners at 79th and 80th. And we're putting in some landscaping. Hopefully I haven't skipped anything. That's what's happening there. And then as we get kind of, we're almost in the river at this point. 79th and East End Avenue is getting, the treatment that everywhere else has been getting, where we update the ped ramps, refurbish the sidewalk if it's in need of it. And I think the last intersection I'll show you is East 80th and East End. Same thing. All 4 ramps are in need of an update. And so that's what we're doing. We're almost at the question section. Thank you for bearing with me. In terms of next steps, so we're still in design. Right now we're getting into like the nitty gritty of the bus stop layouts. That's why we're sharing this with you. That's why we're sharing this with, lots of other folks. And it was about, by the end of this year, we're going to be finalizing design. So give or take November 2025 is when the design of this will be complete. Then there's going to be a lengthy procurement process where this gets bidded out. Contractors come back with, what this would cost to build. And give or take by June 2026, and honestly, probably a bit earlier than that, is DDC will be getting in touch with you to let you know that construction, is imminent, and they're going to have a community liaison set up, and they'll be getting in touch with you to kind of coordinate whatever impacts there might be as construction happens. And this is a lengthy project, right? We're doing the whole width of Manhattan, and everything I've just showed you is kind of like the tip of the iceberg, right? It's everything that's above level. All of this work is accompanied by extensive utility work, storm sewer work, water main work, all of the, Verizon, Con Ed, everybody's going to come in and also have things that need to be updated. That's why this takes a bit, some time. So give or take, because that's taken into account as we do these estimated timelines, but the 3-year construction phase, and by the fall of 2029, this should be wrapping up. And that's kind of, yeah, this is an overview of what the project is and what the timing of it is. And you'll be hearing from folks fairly soon by, by fall of this year about where else, about other things. So thank you. I am
Thank you.
available for questions.
Thank you, Alexander.
Thank you.
We'll take some questions or comments from the public first. And I see it. Please identify some of you just have first names. Please identify yourself fully for our tape. First person that I see is Leah.
Yeah, Leah, go ahead and look for a prompt on your device confirming and muting. And then everybody else,
Hi,
if you
can
want to
you hear
ask
me?
a question, yeah, we can hear you, Leah. If you want to ask a question,
Great.
look for the react icon on your device and press the raise hand button.
Give
Thanks,
us your
Leah.
full
Go
name,
ahead.
Leah.
Yeah, it's Leah Hanlon. My question is about the First Avenue intersection. My understanding is that the current arrangement is temporary. The bus stop used to be on the east side, the westbound intersection on the northern side used to be on the northeast corner,
Okay.
but because of the Extel construction there, it's been moved to the northwest corner, which I thought was temporary. I note that unlike the eastbound lanes on the south that have the pink area that you've painted on the road, you don't have that on the north side, which I thought was because of the temporary nature. And you have also on the northwest corner extended the sidewalk into the lane there. Why do you, well, A, are you moving the bus stop back to in front of the Extel site, which kind of makes sense? Or regardless of whether you are, well, if you're not, are you going to have those pink bus lanes on the northern side, on the westbound side? And doesn't your sidewalk extension mean that the bus can't just go straight through the intersection? It's got to come out into the other lane where it is doubtless going to sometimes get kind of stuck and then mess up traffic. Why don't you just have the pink strips and have them go straight through
Okay,
without a sidewalk extension? Because it's a big sidewalk.
Okay, so let's address things one at a time. There's some things I won't be able to answer kind of on the spot. We're gonna have to look into. As far as the kind of temporary relocation of the bus stop, I'll have to look into that. That's usually because of construction. Unfortunately, on these plans, I don't have labeled where the permanent location of it would be. And yeah, I don't want to say whether it's on the west or east side of First Avenue. But in general, if something is relocated for construction, we typically put it back once whatever construction is happening ends. The second point you brought up was about these are called queue jump lanes. If they were not implemented as part of 2017, it's because the analysis we did back then and following up on then kind of deemed that at that particular intersection it was not necessary. Especially I think here at the beginning of the westbound route, it probably showed that congestion and kind of bus delays were not an issue at this particular intersection. So that's why those aren't there. But of course, this is something we can double check because we are still very much designing this, and if we deem that like a queue jump lane makes sense here, then we will. The caveat to that is that there may be a what's called it's not a transit priority signal. There's like a queue jump signal here. So although you don't have like a separate part of the lane for the bus, there's a separate signal for the bus going in that lets them go ahead of all the other vehicles and kind of get to where they're going before that. In terms of the sidewalk extension, you bring up a good point. I need to see where the bus stop itself is actually supposed to be, whether it's on the east side or west side. Typically, we only put them into parking lanes. So if everything kind of, I guess, west, hopefully you can see my cursor. If this whole area is west of here is parking, the bus kind of wouldn't really be going through there anyway. So bumping the sidewalk out and making the crossing shorter wouldn't be much of an issue, because the bus needs to merge anyway. So that's something, I wish I had time to like dig into the site plans and specifics of like what exactly is happening, but we haven't noted. And we'll take we'll double check that for you.
I was just looking and can confirm that it looks like that it is a parking lane or was a parking lane before the temporary relocation on the northwest corner on 79th between First and Second.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so my assumption, even though I don't have it labeled on here, is that the bus stop is going back to the northeast side of this. Does that answer your questions?
She lowered her hand, so I think so.
Okay, thank you. Good points though. Thank you. Who is next?
Chuck, I can't hear you, but I see Cause is up next.
Sorry,
So
Yeah, sorry. Cos, and I believe it's Cos Spagnoletti, one of our former board members. So can we unmute Cos? If it is,
You are correct, Chuck. First and 79th. If you're going to move, if you're going to put I hope you're not going to move the stop back to the east side. It's perfectly well connected on the west side, so leave it there. 79th and 5th, you have a special light for the bus to go before all the other traffic.
Yes, going westbound.
Why don't you do that on every intersection?
Because there's other, users of the roadway.
Well,
that we
if
have to keep in mind.
Okay, 3rd Avenue, if I'm crossing the street, why can't the bus go, well, on the west side, it's already on the west side, but any place that the stop is on the east side of the street, you're not going to get pedestrians crossing across the bus lane, going across the bus.
Yes, but, and sorry, no, you can continue with your question and then I'll answer.
No, you can answer that one now.
So, okay, but there's a couple of things in play and, some traffic engineer may interrupt me, but there's only a given amount of time, right, that we can dedicate to the movements at an intersection. And if you start eliminating, whatever, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds from all the other, directions for this bus, those are now 10, 15 seconds that all the other folks using this intersection, they don't have. And so you start to get buildup and congestion and long queuing. Specifically at this intersection, because of the way we have these queue jump lanes, the speeding up of the bus kind of happens automatically because there is already no one kind of competing with the bus in its lane, and it needs to just get across to its bus stop on the far side of the intersection. So it kind of gets all the benefits that a priority signal would give it without actually needing the priority signal.
But on any intersection, you have the walk sign many seconds before the traffic green, correct?
Yes, well, on many, yeah, leading pedestrian.
So why can't the bus go at the same time as the pedestrians? You're not gonna get anything crossing the street in front of the bus. The bus goes the same direction as the pedestrian, which you have on 5th Avenue and 79th. Anyway,
yeah, it's something to consider. Luckily, we can put these signals in-house. We don't have to do it as part of the capital project. So it's like we'll have flexibility. But I will give this another look. Thank you.
My other complaint is it's not the planning or anything, but why don't the buses pull up at the curb? Why do they stop about 3 or 4 feet away from the curb? Well, that's not your problem. That's the MTA problem.
That's an MTA issue. A lot of it is caused, because the buses are already delayed. They're dealing with other stress factors on the road, and so for them, they're doing some unfortunate math in their head where it's not worth it for them to pull in fully to the curb. Typically, but if they see someone that needs, curb like access, like someone in a wheelchair, I think they do pull up. But in a lot of situations, yeah, I mean, they're just trying to save time and kind of get to the end of the route on time. So that's
okay.
Yeah, that's like a human answer. You know, I
Okay,
don't know
no,
what
that's
MTA's
all I've
official
got.
answer
but
is. Thank you.
You can put it down that the stop stays on the west side of First Avenue, please.
Yes, well, again, I can't make you any promises, but we're gonna look at it carefully to see, you know, where it works best and what the pros and cons are. But definitely something we're gonna consider. Thank you.
And when are you going to be removing all the MetroCard machines?
That is a question for MTA, and it's coming.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
all, Chuck. Thanks.
Here.
What do you say, Craig?
TA here, are they available to answer any questions that may relate to areas that fall under their jurisdiction?
Yeah, this is Rob Thompson and MTA Bus Planning. Regarding those MetroCard machines for the SBS, they will be removed when the MetroCard is retired, which I believe we've said is going to be sometime next year. No specific dates yet. And yeah, I mean, in terms of buses stopping, not next to the curb like is shown in this picture. The picture is showing where they should be. We tell drivers to pull up to the curb. Sometimes, for whatever reason, they don't. If there's like a vehicle double parked ahead of them, they might stop somewhat off of the curb so they can get around that vehicle. But when if you see a bus driver, egregiously stopping far out, please write down the bus number that's on the side or the front or the back of the bus, and you could send it in to us, and we could contact that driver and make sure they know to pull all the way to the curb.
Rob, this is Chuck Warren. I want to just say to you that the Metro card for people who have half fare senior cards is done, finished, because I had one and it went out. I tried to use it on March 25th or after that, and it's gone. I happen to have, an Omni card that I'm using now, so it's not going on to next year. I'm not sure. You better check your facts on that.
I mean, in terms of when Metro cards will no longer be usable by anyone on buses or subways, that should be sometime next year.
Well, you better tell some people that, because I can't use my Metro card anymore. I got the amounts refunded to me, and I have an Omni card.
Yeah, that might be because you have the Omni card that now they turned off your Metro card.
No,
Can't speak
that
to
wasn't it.
details.
That
Yeah,
wasn't
no,
it. I spoke to them. I spoke to them.
Yeah,
The Metro
if
card.
if I could interject, and I know Rob, and I know that this is not his area as part of what he does at operations planning, but yes, there are certain MetroCard programs that have already been retired. General MetroCards, MTA announced that they will end sales and refills of MetroCards by the end of this year. They will remain on buses for at least 6 months after that last date of sales. That was as per Jano Lieber in some of his press conferences and the MTA board meetings over the past few weeks. But ultimately, as Rob said, we would imagine that the MetroCard machines are going to be the SBS ticket machines are going to ultimately be removed. At least that's what would seem to be logical. And my comment that I was going to make later is that we may just want to consider what the impact of that is going to be in terms of circulation and the ability to put in amenities that don't currently exist.
And Craig and Chuck, Ruby is also here from the MTA, and they had an answer that they wanted to add to that.
Good.
Hi, it's Ruby. So just a quick thing. So we did start implementing and rolling out Omni for our reduced fare customers. That is actually happening right now. As it was stated, we have stopped folks that do have Metro cards, particularly one that's like the Easy Pay MetroCard component.
Right.
Those folks had to automatically start using their Omni card. And that's where we are. So we're trying to introduce Omni for our senior citizens first, as we're onboarding and discontinuing the MetroCard by later this year. So that is true that the senior citizens are the first ones that we're doing it. We also did it for students in public high schools, middle schools, or anyone that needs it. We introduced Omni there too. So we're trying to catch other programs that we have that do use MetroCards, and start slowly rolling them out onto Omni, and everybody else that will buy them at a vending machine or elsewhere, we're informing them that we're going to discontinue it by the end of this year.
Thank you, Ruby. Okay, we were Stephanie Reckley. We were trying to see if she could unmute. Is she having a problem?
No,
Yeah.
here I am.
Okay, go ahead, Stephanie.
I might have missed this, but how are you going to determine which stop you're going to be working on? And is there a budget for this project?
So in terms of working on, you're saying like when construction happens?
Correct.
So that's going to be up to DDC and the contractor that they select. And then they're going to develop like a construction plan. And then that'll be shared with you once they have that. That's a bit of a ways away still. In general, I mean, yeah, it's really going to be up to the construction team in terms of how they're going to phase and when they're going to do certain intersections.
Is there a budget for this project?
Yes, this is a fully funded capital project, funded with city money. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it's, I don't know if I have the number 45 million in my head, but then again, that includes like the whole, you know, from design, resident engineer supervision, construction itself. There's a huge chunk of money in there that's like contingency. But in general, yeah, I think the budget of this one is 45 million.
Are there some stops that you think are more critical than others?
Well, no. I think these are all critical stops, and you know, the plan is to address issues at each one that we can. There are some stops along the corridor that are not part of this capital project because when we analyzed them, and when DDC took a look, it was, you know, the cost benefit of doing any work there, you know, ended up not working out, and so the bus stops are being left as is because they're up to the latest standards as is.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Stephanie. Now, another one of our former board members, Elaine Walsh, is next. Hello, Elaine, and please unmute Elaine. There you go.
Hi to everybody.
Good evening.
Leah did ask a number of the questions that I had, but one of the concerns I have is that if you're going east or westbound, the buses do not pull into the sidewalk, and this is an MTA issue maybe. And I was told that when it snows, they were told never to pull into the sidewalk. So I just find our discussion here very interesting. I also understand that after the construction is finished for Extel, that bus stop is to return to the east side of First Avenue. The concern I have with this is that this is a residential block. I think traffic moves very well for the buses. But recently, the buses think they're in a bus lane, which is really the traffic lane, and they are taking photos of any double parked car. So if somebody's unloading or loading to get into their car from their residential building, including handicapped and disabled, they're being photographed. And if two buses see them, they're going to get a ticket. This is not a bus lane. I don't understand why that's going on. And I've had so many complaints. It's unbelievable on this. So I'd like to have some clarification on what's happening, since on the avenues, the buses don't seem to be moving as quickly as they are here. I am glad to see that you're not taking away residential parking in order to put a bus lane here, because there's no need. And we really, as a residential block with a number of older people, excuse me, we need not only our parking, but also a respect for when we unload or load a car. So if somebody could respond to that, I'd appreciate it. Also,
yes.
The thing is, please, when you're doing it, the bus stops are a mess. They need repaving now. They can not wait to years. The flooding and the potholes are so dangerous on that.
You mean in the roadway itself? Or-
No, where the buses, the pink areas, that's all a mess. It's
Okay.
all potholed.
But again, you're saying in the roadway itself, like in the red
Yeah,
area.
it's
Okay, yeah.
roadway. You painted it pink. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
That we can address. Thank you. And I think Chris can answer about the
Yeah.
cameras on the buses.
Yeah, hello, Chris Rones. I'm with DOT Transit Development, work with Sasha. In terms of the cameras on the buses, this is part of a joint MTA DOT program called ACE, Automatic Camera Enforcement. As of last year, May, I believe, enforcement has legally expanded, not just the bus lane enforcement, but also double parking and parking in bus stops. So that is something that was, instituted by lawmakers in order to help speed up the buses, and ensure that they could get through traffic, not only where there are bus lanes, but even in areas where there aren't bus lanes. As you say, there requires to be two observations. So two buses have to observe that someone was standing in the same place and either double parking or being in a bus lane. So that's kind of the rules right now. Obviously it inconveniences some people who are double parking, but double parking even before this was not permitted. And it's something really we're doing not to punish people or to make money. It's something we're doing, just another tool in our toolbox to try to get buses to move faster, given all the obstacles they encounter out there on the roadway.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Okay, next is Andrew Fine from the public. Can we unmute Andrew? Go ahead, Andrew.
Hi, Chuck, Craig, and DOT, et cetera. Really concerned that it's going to take like until midnight to get to category 5, which I'm most interested in. But in the meantime, I'd like to ask or point out, a simple change to the way this bus lane is constructed is seriously going to cost $45 million. Doesn't that sound like excessive to anybody here for some like bump outs and some like painting? Can you please explain why this would possibly cost $45 million? And secondarily, explain why the DOT has to outsource every single thing that they do. They are the Department of Transportation. Please tell me why it costs $45 million to improve bus stops across 79th Street, because to me it's nonsensical. Thank you. And I look forward to category 5 in about, 3 hours from now. Thank you.
So in terms of cost, there's someone from DDC or DOT Capital is here to maybe give additional insight to what I'm saying. Yes, it's very frustrating how much things cost, but you have to take into consideration that this isn't just, a little bit of pouring of concrete. Is you have to relocate utilities. You have to relocate a whole bunch of water main work. A lot of this stuff gets blown up because of contingency costs and supervision.
Sasha, I'm
yeah.
here. This
Thank
is
you.
Rhiannon from DDC. So this project, what DOT is showing you right now is really about the DOT portion of the project. This project actually has a very extensive DEP component, which is a large, like about half of the project cost at this point. And that includes new water main, sewer replacements in areas, and new trunk water main as well. So it's a very large project. We're also, which may not be super clear in this presentation, but as part of this project, we're also resurfacing all of these roadways, which is part of the large cost. So it's not just like 4 bus bulbs and some bus pads. That's not the whole project by a long shot.
You could take it up with Elon Musk, Andrew, if you have any further questions on that. Okay, let's see. Next, I believe, is Evelyn David. Go ahead, Evelyn.
Evelyn, you just muted yourself back.
Yeah,
Try that one more time.
now you're on. Go.
Yay, bravo. Hi, good evening, everybody. Just to be very clear about the MetroCard thing, and I'm only going to talk for 2 seconds about this, a little bit more than 2, but we were all sent senior cards, this half fare cards, told to use them up until their expiration date, which is actually, for me, 27. Okay. And when they're finished, throw them away. And then we were sent these little Omni things. I guess we're supposed to use those after that. My question is, will the turnstiles can we still use them in the turnstiles? The half fare things. That's the question. I mean, they're not getting rid of the slots, right? Or are they?
Hi, it's Ruby.
Yeah.
So
Hi.
Hi. So to answer that question, prior to the announcement, this announcement from our chairman, John Lieber, and our office, we had been telling and instructing reduced fare customers that they continue using their MetroCard until it expires. But now that it has been made official that by the end of this year, we're no longer going to be selling MetroCards, and probably by next year, we're just going to implement Omni altogether. It's beneficial for you to start using Omni as soon as you can or by the end of this year, because even though your MetroCard may have an expiration date of 2027, by I believe next year we're going to start phasing out the turnstiles or the machines that you can use to even reload your MetroCard or to swipe at the train or the bus.
Okay, you say by next year. Do you mean December? Do you mean January? Or you're not sure?
So we're looking to start phasing out machines, and I believe just vending machines by the start of next year. I do know that by the end of this year we're going to stop selling MetroCards, I believe, but it seems like we're going to start phasing it out by the end of this year, early next. I can get more information and share it with the board as to what that process looks like in that timeline. But just for now, it's much more beneficial to start using or implementing your Omni card or to spend down what you have on your MetroCard.
Yes, definitely. Okay, thank you very much. I'll just keep track of it. Also, I'll keep asking at the station what's going on because they're pretty good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Evelyn.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. I don't see any more people from the public. Let's get to the board, and the first person who's had her hand up for a long time, her arm's not too tired though, I hope. Valerie Mason, our board chair, always.
Thank you, Chuck. Yeah, I think Elon's free to work on other projects now.
Right.
First I want to thank all the various agencies for coming tonight. I'm a little curious about how this presentation began, Alexander, because you started talking about crashes and reduction of, I don't really understand the connection there, or the connection between what you're trying to do and the reduction in crashes. I don't really see these bus lanes as having anything to do with the statistics that you were saying, and also the fact that you were citing years while we were in COVID, when there was hardly anyone here. So can you explain the causality, your connection there?
So the connection in terms of how improved transit improves safety is because when we take away a lane from general traffic, that effectively narrows the roadway for all other traffic users, and that has a road calming effect. So that's one element. Second, I think I also pointed out that there was a lot of things that we couldn't accomplish in-house in terms of shortening the crossings and kind of making pedestrians more visible. So that's what we're coming in to do with this project. Is this, like a big, say save the whole world thing? No, but it's, every small benefit we could do, every small safety improvement we do does make a difference. So that's why I was highlighting that.
Okay, I could think it's kind of really a misrepresentation, though, to put it out there as saying that because you put in a bus lane, that had the effect of reducing those crashes like that. whether it's pedestrian, bicycle, or whatever. Okay.
And
You
second, I
see
mean,
that-
you also had mentioned the years.
Right.
I can go back to the table, but we're showing all the years.
Yeah, no, I know, but I think
Yeah.
they're irrelevant because we were in COVID for 3 of those years that you showed. So, I mean, just the number of people on the street was reduced. So I'm not sure it's really relevant. But secondly, you did not say that the institution of these bus lanes made any real difference in the speed of the buses. And you didn't give us any data showing what effect, how much faster are these buses going as a result of this 45, how much faster are the buses going to go for $45 million? Let me put it to you that way.
That's a question I can't answer for you until the project is implemented. A lot of this is also, building out what we've deemed to be a successful in-house implementation. And then in terms of improvements, again, 6%
Okay,
might
but
seem
what does
might
that
seem like
mean? Does that mean it went from 16 minutes to 10 minutes, or did it go from an hour to 47 minutes? What are we talking about? You're showing us percentages, but I think we're looking for, tell us in reality what that means. I mean, this says in 2024, after you've already spent the money on the project we have, we're looking at 0.9 miles per hour faster. What is that?
that's I hate to admit to you the state of transit and kind of the I don't know the difficulties we come up against, but we're running a whole mile faster when it compounds over time. It is significant, and it's with
People are
all the
running,
other.
I get it. I know that you're only the messenger here, but people are running the marathon faster.
No, I'm
and
not.
they're
I'm not so
getting
much saying
paid $45 million to do it with 0.9 of an hour, miles per hour faster. That seems like really not a good. I mean, who's measuring the quote unquote success of the program?
We are an MTA is, and if you want, again, what I'm showing you here is a slide, kind of, showing you the big picture things because this is a 1 hour presentation. If you
No,
want to get into the specific minutes and numbers of things, that is available to the public online.
Well, I honestly think that
Yeah.
that's a very important part of the conversation.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, you're telling us that this is going to take almost 4 years to put together $45 million, and
Valerie,
Don't quote me on the
Valerie,
45, yeah, because
Valerie,
that
not
was
the 45. Be fair. You heard the woman, Rhiannon, say that it's only half for the bus
well,
project. The
$20
other
million.
half,
I still think $20 million is a lot of money for 0.9 miles per hour. But let me move off that for a second.
Wait. It was never presented. This was never presented as a project that's intended to speed up buses further. This is intended as a safety improvement, corridor safety improvement project.
Well, what are the projections on the improvements in safety for $20 million? We didn't see anything related to that.
Was, as you can see here, through traffic calming, there have already been improvements, but yet they weren't able to implement as much as they wanted to as a result of the limitations that they had. And this is the second phase of the project to bring intersections into ADA compliance, to add bus bulbs and sidewalk extensions, which reduce the crossing distance, which is inherently safer for pedestrians.
Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, the average from 2012 to 2016 was 30 pedestrian injuries. Okay, that was an average over 4 years. In 2024, we were down at 10. How much more is the $20 million going to improve the pedestrian safety in 2029? What number are we talking about?
So, sorry, this is Rhiannon from DDC. I'd just like to point out once again that the $20 million is for all improvements on the roadway funded by DOT. So that includes resurfacing all of the roads within this project limits, which is both on the west side and the east side of Central Park. That includes doing new pedestrian ramps at all of the intersections. That
Okay.
includes the curb extensions, that includes stormwater management, like the infiltration basins, as well as these bus improvements.
All right.
So
well,
it's not just $20 million to put in some bus stops.
okay.
Also,
well,
like someone said earlier, all of these bus pads, right? Well, there are no bus pads right now, and these bus stops are in very bad condition. So we're also installing concrete bus pads that hold up better to traffic. So it's a long-term project, not just putting
okay.
in the
I
SBS
appreciate
improvements.
that, Rhiannon, and maybe you can come back to us with a number that just relates to the non-paving of the street. But okay, let me, two more questions. I would suspect, and I'll let everybody move on. Why no trees before Lexington Avenue? Why are there so few trees slated for the other avenues?
So we're still working on the landscaping in terms of the design. This what you were shown is very preliminary. There is a landscape consultant working with DDC to identify, good locations for these trees. They're not here at the moment, so unfortunately we can't give you a detailed,
Okay.
answer to that. But trust us that we're trying to maximize trees. That's like the cheapest,
Okay.
best thing to put in.
I would tell you that from what we've heard from the community, we don't want benches. If you're going to put something and you feel there has
True
to be
statement
something,
necessarily. You can't
What?
say that the community, we've never passed a resolution saying we don't want
I
benches.
didn't say that. I said we've
Yeah.
heard from the community. Please don't interrupt me, Craig. Thank you. The other thing I want to say is, and I've seen this now is being put in the subways, these lean bars, especially in narrow sidewalks, it would be much preferred and easy for sanitation cleanup to have those lean bars rather
We're putting in a lot of those, yeah, and especially
Yes.
in places where it's constrained.
Yes. So I would say that since that's already something that the MTA is looking at, I think it would be much preferred than to have seating, especially as you've already agreed that these are narrow sidewalks. And I appreciate you taking my comments, and I'll move on to somebody else.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We're still on item number one. Let's not beat too many dead horses here, frankly. Next is, I may not have this in quite the right thing because we've been going on for so long, but Judy Schneider, we'll call on next. Go ahead, Judy.
I have a comment and a question. I'll ask my question first. You're talking about putting in trees. Are those trees going in the sidewalk? Are they going in the street paths? Where are the trees going?
They're going in the sidewalk, tree pits. So along the curb for the most part.
And you're making new beds?
Yes.
Okay. We call them beds, not pits. Us pruners. Okay.
Sorry about that.
And my only other comment for everybody in general, and this might apply to our next topic, York Avenue from 60th to 63rd, but actually to 64th, they have been fixing the water mains and sewers. They have been putting in new water mains and sewers, as well as lighting and repaving. It started in 2015, and this is 2025. Hopefully, by the summer of this year, this project is going to be done. That's 10 years. It was not forecast to take 10 years. So these people are telling us it's going to take 3 years. If they're doing sewers and water mains and Con Ed, I can tell you all now that it would be nice it would be done in 3 years. But I personally don't think that's going to happen. That's it.
Thank you, Judy. Rita Popper's next. Can we unmute Rita?
I thank you for your presentation. I happen to be a big bus user. I also am a very senior citizen and I walk with a cane. I cannot implore how beneficial it is when a bus pulls to the curb. Not only for me with a cane, but if you're looking to save time, more people are walking with walkers, and baby carriages are a whole different animal by its side. So I just want to implore that when you build the bump out, that if the bus doesn't stop next to the curb, that at least the curb is manageable in height to be able to scale it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, you mentioned Park Avenue, because right now I know Park Avenue does not have any bus stops on 79th Street. Did you mention Park Avenue?
Yeah, yes, but I was mostly talking about the improvements to the median in terms of shortening the crossing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
That's good.
yeah. I don't have it listed on here as, where is it at? Yeah, no, I don't think, yeah, we're not, like, if there's no bus stops there at the moment, there's none going in.
I hope you go with Godspeed and get this done, because I'm
Thank
very
you.
old.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just add, Rob, I know Rob Thompson from the MTA is here. Rob, I know this is something that we've discussed for many years, frankly, and apparently there's no solution to this. The drivers will not pull to the curb. And somebody said they're told not to pull. I don't know who they're told by, but we've had MTA people say just the opposite, that they're instructed to come to the curb, but they just won't do it. So, I mean, it's like an impossible situation. And I don't know whether there's any, we're just whistling in the wind. I mean, Rita, has obviously a good point for older people who have trouble getting on the bus. If they can pull to the curb, it's obviously much better. So is there anything realistic that can be done?
I think the best thing is, like I said, write down the bus number and the time and the date and send it in to us. And that, we don't have supervisors all over the place, and the bus drivers are out there on their own. So if the bus driver knows that people are reporting on them, basically telling on them, and they're getting reported, that's the best way to get them to do what they're supposed to do.
We'll see. Next is Michelle Birnbaum. Michelle.
Thank you very much. I have some of the same concerns as others, but let me start with this. Who actually made the decision? Because what you're reporting doesn't have anything to do with whether or not the program was a success. You are doubling down on it, and you're adding bump outs in various places, and you're adding whatever the curb extenders are. But that is not giving us any particular evidence that having this bus lane on 79th Street was a successful project. I'm concerned on the eastbound lane that comes right off Fifth Avenue, where you're proposing the bump out. In your illustration, you didn't show any of the kiosks for getting, the fare or the Metro card.
Yes, because those should be phased out by
We
then.
didn't see them, but I know they're going to be there. But I see that corner, or any exit or entrance into the park, but an exit of cars going east or west from the park, automatically causes congestion. And now to put the bus lane there, that's a bump out, and you're leaving that very narrow car lane there, you're going to create congestion at Fifth Avenue. So that's a concern of mine. Another one is, if you put up slide 7, as some of you know on this call, I never like to hear percentages, because unless you can translate it into time, and Valerie alluded to that, this is a pet thing of mine, the percentages means nothing. I've heard on slide 7, bus bunching decreased by 60%. Well, to get that, yeah, you have to know how many instances of bus bunching there were, and then what does 6% in numbers come down to? The same with ridership, and especially with travel times. 4 to 8%. How many minutes does that translate into?
So again, I guess I need to repeat that, this presentation, this deck, these numbers are geared to be like a quick kind of summary of what's happened. If you want to get into the numbers with me, we're going to have to connect separately.
But not tonight, because our last issue is probably the most important one of the night, and we're spending a lot of time on this. But I want to point out that in future presentations, I personally request that you don't bring us this kind of information, because to me,
you want the raw minutes.
well, it clouds the issue. When you don't give us incidences by saying something is 6% less or 9% less, less of what? Less of 1,000, less of 5,000, less of 2, and what number does that translate into? So this to me is irrelevant information. It's not helpful, and I know you take time to do these slides, so I just
No,
want
but
to
this is
ask you
valuable
about
feedback.
that.
Thank you. Yeah, next time
Okay.
I can bring the raw numbers.
The other thing I want to ask you, when you talk about Park Avenue is a historic district. Does the DOT have any responsibility when doing work in a historic district or at a landmark or anything like that? Is there any requirement for you to clear that work, or at least present that work to the appropriate landmark committee of a community board, or even to the landmarks commission?
Yes, we present it to the landmarks commission.
Yeah, Michelle, it's Colleen. Any work that we do in a historic district, we reach out to the committee to let them know before any changes are made.
Well, am I not remembering? This did not come to landmarks on this board. I'm on that committee.
I think it's heading there, soon.
And again, Michelle, we can follow up with you on that. But this came to the Transportation Committee because initially we presented this back in 2017. That's why we're bringing,
No, I get that. My question is if it comes to a district, a landmarks district, and Alexander is confirming that yes, it does go to the landmarks commission, I'm suggesting hand in hand with that, it should also come to the landmarks committee. We have a very active landmarks committee on this board, and all things about the sidewalk in front of a landmarks or in a landmarks district come to the landmarks committee, and I would think that this presentation should be no different. So if you haven't scheduled it, I personally would appreciate it if you would. I think that's important. So anyway, yeah.
So Michelle, just going back on that, if there is a need that we have to do that, I will let you know. I will reach out to you and I will let you know. Okay.
Okay. So you're suggesting you're not sure that there is a need to do that?
We're not sure yet. We will keep you posted. We will let you know.
Did you go to the landmarks commission already?
No, we have not, Michelle, because again, this project is it's not even in implementation phase yet. We are presenting this to let the community board know of the proposals that we are planning. Yeah, but
so
it hasn't.
For me, Colleen, will you find out the answer, if you wouldn't mind, to that question?
I will.
Not pertaining only to this project, but as a matter of protocol, because it shouldn't have to be a question that you ask every time you do a project. So
I will find out, Michelle, and I'll let you know.
Some protocol. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you would just pay attention and special notice about the Fifth Avenue, about the Park Avenue, and about some kind of representation as to the success of a bus line on 79th Street. I would like to hear about that. So thanks very much for the work and the presentation.
Michelle.
Thank you.
Sebastian Hallam Clark. Can we unmute Sebastian, please?
Thank you. I'd like to propose a resolution in support of the proposal and speak to it if seconded.
Okay, Paul, I see. Second. Okay, go ahead, Sebastian.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, Paul. Simply, this gives us a safer boarding environment for especially our seniors and people moving around with strollers. This involves less crowded sidewalks with more room for our neighborhood to move around. And then at the crosswalks, this makes shorter crosswalk distances, which makes our neighborhood safer and easier to move around. I think this is a no-brainer, and I really want to thank the DOT for bringing this to us.
Thank you.
And Sebastian, again, it's Colleen. I want to thank you for noting that, because it should be also mentioned that there was a recent press release that was announced by Mayor Adams and our Commissioner Rodriguez where they announced that traffic fatalities in New York City reached a historic lows during the first quarter of 2025. And again, this is due to the success of a lot of the safety improvements that we're making citywide with all of the tools that we have in our toolkit. So thank you for, pointing that out.
Further discussion on this before, or should we vote?
Yeah, I would like to actually ask a few questions and say something.
Yeah. Oh, please.
Yeah,
First,
so I may have missed it. So are there any new shelters that are being considered?
Yes.
And
So at
and we
locations
don't.
where we previously couldn't put them in due to, whatever siting issues we had, they'll be going in. And also we're gonna have, well, we're still discussing this with DDC, but there's locations where, where we're most likely gonna be removing the MTA fare machines. That opens up space. If a shelter can go into that location, we'll be placing one. We do have a contract. Yeah, we do have a contract with the bus shelter people to install new shelters. And so, wherever we can put them, especially on a major route like this, we will be.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to hear, especially because we've seen the reports about the urban heat island effect, and especially um, on westbound stops on the north side of on 79th
They get
Street,
hot.
especially during the summer months, they can get really hot. And other elements also, the protection that would be provided would be really helpful. So that's great. And then just going back to the benches, as I am someone who is supportive of benches, I cannot speak for what our community feels as a whole, but we don't have a position currently in support or in opposition to them. So I just want to make that clear.
Okay.
Just going back to the signal priority comment, I think it is a great idea to try to align signal priority with leading pedestrian intervals. However, I don't know whether it's realistic because unless the bus is actually already at the front of the queue at an intersection, if the bus is behind another vehicle, it's not going to be able to take advantage of that LPI unless there's already a T jump in place where that bus will have the ability to go around it. So I think that's probably the reason why it hasn't happened. And as long as, and I haven't looked myself, but as long as the proposed sidewalk extensions don't interfere with the ability for buses to continue into the bus lanes, which I suspect that they don't, or don't interfere with current signal priority, I think that is going to hopefully be a great benefit going forward. And then on a personal note, in which case I guess technically I will be stepping down from
the
to
chair.
make the statements.
So noted.
As the chair. What's that?
So noted.
Okay. I just want to push back on this notion that we are throwing away money to try to further reduce crashes and injuries to pedestrians, and that all data during the COVID timeframe is suspect. This is what bus bulbs and sidewalk extensions do in terms of really creating calming impacts to make it a safer environment. And we had a presentation from New York City DOT and MTA post implementation of the SBS and before COVID. That was in November 2018. And I welcome anyone to go back into our presentation that we have posted on our website, which really spells out a lot of the benefits that were born out of this project and that are backed up by the data. And then I just also want to say that the mere nature of how crosstown buses operate, it limits the number of minutes that a bus can gain, just because of the fact that the buses are the nature of a crosstown route is they stop at virtually every intersection. There are lots of boardings and alightings. The bus physically cannot gain a huge amount of minutes on each and every trip. So I think anyone who's looking to show the amount of minutes is going to be disappointed because it's not going to be a particularly large number, but every minute matters to commuters, those who are riding the buses on a regular basis. And that can mean a minute saved can mean that you're making a subway transfer much more effectively and you end up saving however much time the headway is on a subway. So I just want to make clear to everyone that I think that we need to just not lose the forest from the trees here in terms of what these improvements are. If we want to see lots of minutes of improvements, we literally need an express crosstown route, and that we know is not realistic and wouldn't serve most of our population. So as a bus rider, I just want to say that any improvement is celebrated, and I hope that we celebrate this. And I really hope that we can support this resolution because we should be aiming to reduce injuries and crashes to the lowest extent possible. And this does not sound like a particularly expensive investment, especially given that so much of it is based off of the DEP work that's being done.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Normally, I
very
don't
much.
take public comments at this point when we're discussing a resolution, but Mr. Sutton, Daniel Sutton, has had his hand up for a long time. So I'll we can unmute him and he can make some comments here before we get to Paul.
Thank you. To increase bus speeds and street safety on 79th Street, turn 79th Street into a busway like the one on 14th Street, and that would clear up a lot of the problems that people are experiencing.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll take it into consideration. That is a heavy lift. You do have a lot of curbside demand along 79th.
Right. Paul Crickler is next. Paul.
Evening. I'd like to call the question, please.
Okay. Is there any objection to calling the question on this? I don't think so. Do you want to, Craig, do you want to call the roll just so we make sure who's here from the board? Oh, Craig needs to be unmuted.
Yep.
He needs to be unmuted.
Sorry, I had temporarily muted myself.
Don't make
All
that.
right. So we have myself, Chuck, Alita, John McClement, Judy, Michelle, Paul, Rita, Sebastian, TJ, Valerie.
Okay. So those who are in favor of the resolution to approve the DOT recommendations don't have to do anything. Those who are opposed or abstaining or for some reason not voting for cause, please raise your hand. Valerie Mason can unmute Valerie to vote.
Oh, I'm going to abstain because I don't think
That's okay.
necessary.
Abstaining, you don't have to give a reason.
Oh, okay.
Michelle?
No.
No. Alita Camp?
Abstain.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay. So I think that's it.
All right. Nope. TJ is having problems finding his raise hand button. There you go, TJ.
Abstaining.
TJ, okay, he's abstaining. Okay, got it. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. I guess we've got the Craig, you've got the count.
So it's 7 yes, 1 no, 3 abstentions.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much. We appreciate the DOT presentation.
Thank you very much and for giving us
thanks
all
for
this attention.
You know, sometimes there's concern that DOT doesn't come and give us a heads up, but you're coming, in advance to give us a heads up before the design phase is even done. And we'll appreciate an update as things go along. So thanks to all of you. Okay. All right.
And thank you to everyone else who's been patient, waiting on this agenda.
Now, Valerie, our chair, would like to say something.
I wanted to make a motion to move the agenda to item 5 and make that next.
Well, we have a whole bunch of, I don't know that we want to do that actually. And since we thought about this, but we have the DOT folks here and they're here to talk about a few of these things. And so I don't think normally we don't make agency people wait, and that's why we put the agenda the way it is. So instead of doing that, let's see if we can move things along.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. I know we had a discussion about this, but it's just, anyway.
I understand. But look, people want to say a lot of things, so we'll see. The next number 2 is the DOT presentation on the York Avenue Transportation Study.
Hey, Chuck, thanks so much for accommodating us this evening. I really do appreciate it. So the next presentation is going to be the York Avenue Traffic and Transportation Study. And I know this is something that the community board is anxiously waiting on us to provide the information on the next steps. So Cole, my colleague, is going to deliver the presentation tonight. So thank you so much.
I know it's only 10 years. I'm not sure how many years it's been. Though
hey, but
I could be wrong.
You have a new Omni card, okay?
Thanks. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Cole.
Can you see the presentation?
No,
Not
you
yet.
need
It's
to
not
share
there
your
yet.
screen
You
and
need
then
to
hit
share your
finish.
screen.
Can you see it now?
No.
Not yet. Well,
Okay, let's see what's happening here. Well, I'm sharing, but no, it's not allowing me.
Will, do you have a?
I have a backup if we need it, but there you go.
There it is.
Okay.
Here we are.
You'll want to make it
Sure,
full
sure. Yes.
presentation.
There we go.
Yeah. Right.
You're showing the screen that has your notes. If you there you go. Yeah, swap.
Okay. You see it now?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Got it
perfect.
right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And I promise you this is going to be shorter and less intense. And the reason is because we are just starting this study, so we really don't have that much to show besides letting you know that we started the study. We had a kickoff meeting with the technical advisory committee about 3 weeks ago. It's what we will discuss is basically a little bit about project background. As you said, it's been quite a while since this idea was floating around. Study goals and objectives, subjects of analysis, study area limits, a little bit of roadway characteristics for York Avenue, just for the information, and project schedule, which is probably the most important, and in the end, questions and answers. So I believe it was 2013 that the idea was that there was a request for a transportation study for York Avenue, and it started during the public review process for the land use for MSK, Cancer Center, City University, Hunter College, and the council, borough president, and community board requested the study. And then in 2020, community board aid approved a resolution request for a comprehensive traffic study on York Avenue. As someone mentioned before, there was construction work on York Avenue for many years, and it's complicated to collect the data accurately if there is lane closures and stuff like that. So this was postponed. Unfortunately, still at the south end, I believe it's between 61 and 63rd Street, 61st and 63rd. There is some work going on, but there are two traffic lanes. We'll see how this works in the future, but we believe that this is not going to be something that would impede the study. What are we actually studying here? Typically, when we say traffic study, most people think we're just studying traffic operations, but it's more a comprehensive study to improve mobility for pedestrians, particularly for safety, cyclists, transit, and vehicular traffic too. But what's left here a little bit out is that really safety is the primary reason and most important part of the study. We will evaluate existing, which is current situation on York Avenue, and then project the future volumes and include all other activities that may happen in the future in the study. We would really like to have public participation. We already have a technical advisory committee, and in the end, we will develop in the form of a transportation report recommendations and present improvement measures and address all the community issues and concerns. What are we studying is the first step is typically is collecting traffic data and then conducting analysis, looking into truck movements and operations, truck routes, load and unloading zones, where trucks actually conduct these operations, and curb utilization, pets and bikes, crashes and safety. We actually have this data internally at DOT. Parking regulations, parking supply, and demand and utilization. I'll show you a plan later. We already know what the parking regulations are there. And public transit, ridership frequency, bus stops, and the rest of the information that is needed for a study of this type. This is the study area limits. In the resolution from 2000 specifically asks for studying for putting the focus on the segment from 59 to 79. We extended it to 96 because of the access to FDR. So in total is almost 2 miles long corridor with 35 signalized intersections. This is just some basic characteristics of York Avenue. This is a cross section. We basically have 60 feet to work with, 2 travel lanes in both directions and parking on both sides. The distance from the center of the intersection here is 85, but this is typically it's about 250 to 260 feet. So this is what we have. This is a very important slide because this shows the safety issues that summarized over last 5 years from 2020 to 2024. Luckily, we got 2024 about just a few weeks ago. We had only 2023, but everything is in the system now. So as you can see, there were total injuries are 222, severe injuries 18. It shows here as 2 fatalities, but actually it was 3 because one just occurred recently. So as you can see on this side right here, it says fatalities 3. The next slide, last time for a TAC meeting, we were asked to present more where are these crashes happening. This is a diagram that shows, and for some reason at this point I wouldn't be able to answer why, but it was the 61st, 2nd, and 3rd that most of they had experienced most crashes of all other intersections. In 2023, there was a fatality at 68th Street. The recent one was between 71 and 72 in the mid block, and there was one in 2024 at 87th Street. So these are 3 fatalities in the last 5 years that happened there. This is parking regs, and what was interesting here that basically south of East 70s, if you follow the legend here, you see that the red is no standing, magenta is no parking, metered parking is green. So if you look from 70th Street south, you see there's a lot of city blocks. There is no standing anytime. North of there is much more metered parking. There is some sections there like it's trucks loading, unloading, and these orange areas are bus stops. It's a lot of bus stops. As we said, we have to collect the parking data and utilization, and we will do that. We will probably do that internally here at DOT. So where are we going with this? This month, next month, and we have to do this before, collect the traffic data before the schools close. So we have to do this before June or by June 15. You will probably see many cameras installed there on street corners, and we will collect traffic data. And then by the fall of 2025, we're going to start working once we complete all the data that we need and what we already have and know more about existing conditions. Then after that, we will move into a phase of improvement recommendations that should be next winter and spring. This can change. This is not written in stone, but this is what we intend to do right now. Draft final report should be issued during spring or summer 2026, and the final report probably late summer of 2026 or fall of 2026. These are just some pictures that we took while we were there recently. This, I'm not sure if I can do this, but this is the best way of communicating with us. First, you can do it directly or with Borough Commissioner's office. Rafael is the point person. So if you want to contact or ask or suggest, or you can do it that way, or we will soon have on our DOT website a specific project site for this, and you can insert directly. Let me just see if I can show it. You can directly insert. We still didn't do it, but I'm going to just use one of these other projects as a sample. This is the fast and the best way to communicate with us, because we will check this website weekly or maybe even daily. It's pretty simple. Going to basically selecting the type of question or suggestion that you have, and let's say you just go here and then you choose on the map, then bringing this to the location that you and inserting the comment and this whatever you want to say. And this worked really well. But for studies of this size, we typically get hundreds of comments here, and it's very easy to do this on your side, and it's very, very convenient for us to review it. So basically, this is what we have to show for now. As we said, once we collect the data, and we will be in touch, and I can imagine it's going to be a lot of interest about, because this is a long corridor, and so I'm sure there is a lot of issues there.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And we're just starting, obviously, in the beginning. And we'll look forward to hearing back from you when you're ready. Okay, we have a few people here who want to make some comments or questions. Andrew Fine is first. Unmute Andrew, please.
Hey, Chuck, thank you. I just don't know why I spent the last 15 minutes listening to a presentation on something that the DOT is going to study. You know, the community board is meant to be about the community and soliciting community input. And to have the topic of the day essentially pushed to number 5, buried. You know, I don't know about you, but I've been on my couch for over an hour and a half with my earbuds in, ignoring my family, taking away from family time to participate in the community conversation. I really wish that we could do this a little bit more efficiently. I have comments on category number 5. I'd love to present them right now if you'd allow me to.
No, you're not allowed to do it. Listen,
so in this case, I just want to say
we appreciate your
thoughts. We should do this in a much more efficient manner.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. We'll take it under advisement. Thank you. Okay. Next, Devin Friedrich.
Hi, thank you, Chuck. Thank you to the DOT for doing the study during this presentation. I live on the east side of York in the upper 80s by Carl Schurz Park. I'm 24 years old and I've been here for 21 years. So, you know, I've seen through all phases of my life York Avenue. My younger brother's 10 years younger. I saw him as a child. And York Avenue, you grip a child really firmly around York Avenue. It's a treacherous road. It's a two-way avenue, 60 feet wide, like you said. And I'll speak for the upper York, because the hospitals, it's obviously a different situation. But up here, I mean, the traffic does not support a road of this scale. So I'm really excited for the study. I really want to see, you know, sidewalk, you know, extensions at the curbs so that the crossing distance is reduced. I want to see the lights shorter. The lights are so long. And, up here, until the Second Avenue subway opened, this was a very deep transit desert in Manhattan, the deepest in Manhattan. It's not true anymore, but, the select bus changes to 86th Street to 79th Street have been vital. And it would be great to have, at least during rush hour, a bus lane in the upper 80s to get the M86 and the M31 going at the start of their route. Because, it used to be that I could walk to Lexington and beat the bus. It's not always true anymore. But I wanted to say that. I mean, this is going to be a really good project. And I look forward to watching it progress. And I'm grateful for your consideration of the community members' input. This was my item of the night. So yes, thank you. I'll cede my time.
Thank you, Devin. Have you slowed down or has the bus speeded up? We don't know. Okay. Next, Rita Popper. Can we have you, Rita?
I look forward to your study. Thank you so much. But when you talk about fatalities, when you do your presentation, I would appreciate it if you would talk about whether the fatality happened with bicyclists or they were involved, or is it cars? Because there are many injuries that are not reported from bike accidents unless they go to the hospital or there's a fatality. So when you do your final presentation, could you please talk to how those fatalities happened? And this is an iconic street in the entire world. There is not a street like this that has the amount of medical and institutions in the world. And thank you.
Can I answer?
Yeah, of course.
We actually, for all fatalities, request police reports. So we have details. I didn't present them. I don't even know them now, but as we go with the study, but yes, absolutely. Each fatality we request every detail we can get. So I believe that the last fatality was there was a pedestrian crossing in the mid block between 70 and 72nd, and then a vehicle made a U-turn and hit the person. But we have details. We get detailed police reports for all of the, and in fact, most of the injuries are reported, but for fatalities, police department sends us here in this office where I am right now. They send us the details of the crash, so we inserted. That's why this one occurred like 2 months ago, and still we have it in the system. So definitely, you'll know all of about them.
Thank you. Okay. Next, Judy Schneider.
Yes. I have to disagree with some of what you've said. I'm from the 60s, so 63, 62, and 61 that have exits from the FDR. And then on 2nd Avenue, we have the bridge and exits on and off the bridge on various streets. So the York Avenue construction, which I alluded to at the earlier item that we discussed. I don't know if you heard me say, but I'll repeat myself. It started in 2015 and is now supposed to be done in the summer of 25. Who knows if that's going to happen? And yet you're going to be doing studies and getting statistics, and yet the area in the 60s is extremely important to us on York Avenue, and it doesn't have a regular traffic flow because of the construction that's going on. So I don't know how you can study what's going on there. It certainly isn't going to be done by June. They say now by July. I have my doubts because it's been years. Every 2 years they give us a new date, and it just doesn't happen. And this piece at 62nd Street where they're working seems to be a particularly bad problem. So I don't know. How are you going to get statistics and study that area while the construction is going on, because you don't have normal traffic there. The lane is blocked going southbound.
No, lane is not actually black. There is
Yes.
2 lanes going south. It's a little on the northbound. The how it's designed, that may be impactful, but on the southbound there is
Yeah,
2
there's
lanes.
a
It's just,
lane taken away from the southbound side at 62nd Street unless they removed it yesterday.
but we definitely will
There
work
is a
with
lane of
DDC.
traffic that is totally obstructed there. And then during the day, they have trucks and things that come out depending on what they're working on. I mean, I don't know how you can study that area until this construction is completed.
Well,
Otherwise, we're being cheated in the 60s.
we will not count traffic if we notice that there is traffic issues, that actually there are drivers that avoid that area. We want to have it fully open. We'll talk to DDC and see when they will fit. If we have to postpone the counts until it's fully open, but as you said, neither us know when is this going to be finished. And the prime reason why this study wasn't done before was that we really didn't want to do any work there or any studies before York is open from the beginning to the end. So we'll observe and make sure that
I mean,
we have the core.
we have traffic agents there, and 62nd Street, 2nd Avenue, you can't get across, it's backed up. 1st Avenue, York Avenue, it's all from the drive and the bridge. I mean, the places, the 60s down in that area in the bridge from 63 down to 61 or 60th are just a total complete mess. And if you're going to do studies now, then I think it's not fair until this work is completed, because you're not helping us here in the 60s.
Okay, I think you got the point. Okay.
Sure.
All right, let's go to Michelle Birnbaum.
Yes, thank you. Look, I have to say that what you're proposing is complete antithesis to what would be a study. While we on this committee and every committee of the community board always ask you to come to us with your plans, with all that, and of course we want you to, when you do a study, a real study, it's the one time that you shouldn't come to us. And I don't mean with this initial presentation. I mean with providing a vehicle for community input in advance of the study being conducted. What a study means is that you evaluate what's going on there. And then based on what you find, you come up with certain solutions. And at that point, in keeping with what the result of the study was, it will determine either one solution or many possible solutions. And at that point, you can have the community weigh in for their preference. But you don't have a community at the start of your study, have people write into you and say, I want this on this block, and I want this on this block, and I want this traffic light change, and I want this bike lane, and I want this to be 2 lanes, and we don't need enough bus lanes. That's not a study. A study is you gather up all of the stats, and then your professionals tell us what could be the solutions for the problems or challenges that you found. So the original study that was voted on prior to 10 years ago, but to 20 years ago, was a proposal to study York Avenue, and it specified an outcome. And that's why it never happened. It was a proposal to study an outcome. And the community was against the outcome. I'm not going to go into it now. And therefore, the whole concept of the study was abandoned. This is going back forever. I'm on the board since 2006. And that's even going beyond before that. But you don't collect data like this by asking everybody in the community what they would like to see. That's not a study. A study is your people, your engineers, your traffic people, and you have one person who's an advisor to you, which I won't mention any names, but I would like you to go beyond that person, because every time the DOT does anything, that person is your expert. And I think DOT knows who I'm talking about. But that's the way a study is done. So I am now very disheartened that you've opened it up to comment before you've gotten one statistic. Can you address that? And will you let me know if you'll reconsider this process?
Well, I think you misunderstood, ma'am, the whole process. I mean, we collect the data. That's why we said we put cameras there. We get for each intersection, turn and movement counts. We put them for 2 days. We have tubes on the ground. We have field visits. We get parking data. We have parking utilization. Once we have all that data, plus what we have here, we have street design plans. We have signal plans. We have computer programs that simulate operations. We look at crashes, where, why, how, and then this is what we do. This is the process. Every transportation study that I've done over 30 years follows that process. What we meant by community involvement is that from the beginning to the end, typically people let us know that at such and such intersection, we have this and this problem. That doesn't mean that it goes into the study, but we want to know what people think. Sometimes some comments are valid, sometimes are not. But we do the study based on the data that we get. And once we have all that, we develop recommendations, and then we share them with you, and then we discuss them. And in the end, we publish the report when everyone is happy.
Okay.
Okay,
think-
and I'd like to
I
put
think-
on my urban
Yeah.
planner,
Right.
transportation
Go
planning
ahead.
hats. So I just want to I just want to second what Cole just said, because any study should have as a central component of it, especially a study that involves a corridor like this, public participation, public input, public feedback. The best way for anyone to be able to get a sense of what is going on in the corridor is through actual participation from those who experience it every day. And the purpose of having this discussion here today as the kickoff was to introduce the study, to encourage people to provide their feedback. It's not to say that someone may have a suggestion that's going to necessarily become the outcome, but everyone who uses York Avenue on a regular basis, as a pedestrian, as a motorist, as a transit passenger, they have knowledge of what is going on in that corridor, and they need to be able to have a forum to be able to provide that feedback to New York City DOT. And when we had our kickoff meeting and the stakeholder meeting, we had a lot of the institutions that line York Avenue to be able to provide their experience. We have had discussions about making sure that, especially stakeholders from the schools and the parents who live in the communities, who have to see their children risk their lives trying to cross the street, how we are going to include them in this study, because they are the ones who have probably the most at stake here as part of the study. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to everyone, that that is really what the motivation of having this discussion here today and why it was important. I just want to comment, going back to Judy's comments, I tend to agree with her, and I appreciate, Cole, that you added the graphic there showing where the distribution of where the pedestrian injuries were, and you could see that there is a concentration in what, coincidentally or not, is at the area where we are seeing the ongoing construction project. And I think it is really important that we are able to not just collect that data, but to be able to see what the impact of removing all that construction from that area is on operations, in order for the study to be able to have the outcomes that we all want to see, and have it be accurate based off of the permanent condition as opposed to the temporary condition. So I think we want to just make sure that however we move forward with this, that we are taking into account that special situation down there. The last thing that I want to do, and this initially was supposed to be separated into an item 2A and 2B, if you will. I'd just like to share my screen for a second. I know that Cole, you're sharing your screen. If we could just switch it, I just want to share my screen for a moment, please. I ran Crash Mapper data today, and it doesn't perfectly align with Cole's data because I did it starting in 2020 and took it through January 2020 and took it through March 2025. But it correlates in terms of the pedestrians killed. Rita was asking about the cyclist injuries. It's actually relatively low compared to other corridors. It's even compared to the other more narrow avenues. But the pedestrians killed, York Avenue is highest, and it has a higher injury rate than the other narrow avenues. So I think clearly there are issues here. But what I wanted to point out was this line here, the FDR Drive. And we spoke a lot at the stakeholder kickoff meeting, the technical meeting, excuse me, about the relationship between the FDR Drive and York Avenue. And basically, whatever happens on the FDR Drive has spillover effects on York Avenue. And a lot of the issues that appear on York Avenue are directly related to the entrances and exits. And we see, especially on the FDR Drive, and especially by 71st and 73rd Streets, and 73rd Street is particularly problematic, a really high incidence of crashes and injuries because of the blind turn that vehicles have to make as they're making the right turn onto the entrance ramp, as cars are speeding off at the exit ramp from the FDR Drive. And I think one of the things that I was hoping we could do as part of this is the FDR Drive, it is not fully under the jurisdiction of New York City DOT, and we're trying to get clarity as to what parts of it are versus what parts of it aren't. But largely, New York State DOT is the operator of the FDR Drive. And what really would be helpful for us to be able to look at the York Avenue aspect is to really have a mutual understanding of the FDR Drive. And I want to bring up the possibility that we ask New York State DOT and New York City DOT to come together and do a corresponding assessment of the FDR Drive, because these numbers here are unacceptable in terms of the number of crashes and the number of injuries, mostly motorists because there aren't really pedestrians, but there have been fatalities on this stretch of FDR Drive. This is all data from our community district. There have been lots of injuries, and clearly those those crashes impact traffic operations on York Avenue.
So can the DOT folks comment on that?
It's, as you said, FDR is a state roadway. We will definitely look at 72nd and 73rd Street issues. We also implementing a project on the north side at 96th Street. Most likely we will make the right lane at the exit, exit lane only, because of the incidents happening on I'm talking about now about 96th Street interchange, the northbound ramp acceleration lane is very short, and there is a lot of crashes there. So we are trying to separate from this study. This is a street improvement study that we're looking into it right now. But to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think we can include state DOT or FDR in this study because, as you know, there is limits in budgets, and once we submit our requests for funding the study, we have to be very accurate with what we're studying and what are the study area limits and how many intersections we're studying. So once we start expanding it, we are just out of project scope.
Excuse me, Cole. I appreciate what you're saying, and I think maybe I was misunderstood. I was suggesting that maybe our committee wants to
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Asking for a separate but corresponding study, not to include it in the scope of this. This we understand that's set. The project has been defined. It's funded for the current the current scope. we get that. I'm talking about us asking for a corresponding separate assessment that was mostly going to be done by New York State DOT because they control the FDR drive, but that would obviously really inform what we're doing here as part of this effort. That was my suggestion.
Thank you. That's it's good that it's
Yeah.
clarified. We work
Yeah.
with them. We worked with state DOT. We worked on BQ and a couple of projects that have similar issues that exit on and off ramps. So we work with them. So we're here to work with them also. I just wanted to make sure that I was talking to my colleagues today that when I saw the one of the bullets for tonight's discussion that it was about, I misunderstood. I said maybe we are being asked to go into FDR. I said that. Okay, so thank you for clarifying it.
Craig,
Yeah,
let's
Cole,
take
it's
up.
Colleen. And I just wanted to mention that this was something that Craig is right, that was raised at the TAC that we had. And also Valerie had raised, including MTA, especially with
Sure,
travel
yes.
times on the buses. Okay.
Yes. Once we get one of the study areas for this is going to be transit, and we definitely work with MTA on that. So absolutely, yes.
Craig, let's this covers 3. Why don't we wait? If we want to take some action, maybe we should do that next month. At this point,
I'm happy. Yeah, let's let Valerie speak because I know she was interested in this as well, and then we can decide.
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought Craig was encouraging someone to make a motion to
okay.
encourage the study.
We could do it now if we want and just dispose of it quickly if we want.
Well, I'm happy to make the motion to do course.
Okay.
Go for it.
And can I ask you a question, Craig? If once what segment of the FDR you think that should be part of the study?
I think we were looking at between whether you want to call it 96 and 59th Street or whether it be between where the
crashes are.
access and egresses are, and that they're basically at every access and egress point, but they're particularly high by 71st and 73rd Street, and at the entrance by 79th Street southbound, and I think also by 61st and 63rd Streets.
Yeah.
But especially where you have the short entrance and exit ramps and the convergence of incoming traffic trying to enter at 73rd.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is there a
that's
second?
my motion that
Is
we
there a
asked
second?
for.
Is there a second to Valerie's motion here? Yes, Rita seconds. Okay. All right. And we have a couple people who want to discuss this motion. Michelle's had her hand up, and then Judy Schneider. Let's see how. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, 2 things. First of all, it was notable that in the chart that Craig put up, that there were more accidents with bicycles on those avenues that had the bike lanes. So that was something to note. But I wanted to finish my my comments. I think I was prematurely muted in response to Craig mentioning what would be a legitimate part of a study. I will still push back and ask the DOT to please have enough people who are doing the study so that you don't have to depend on citizen studies. The time for people to participate is when the study is done, the stats are in, there are solutions, and then we can offer our opinions based on what's possible. So I'm asking him to please do that. I'm making it again.
That's how it's going to be done.
Thank you. With reference to the FDR, what exactly are you proposing tonight? What is this resolution, Valerie?
Well, I think the resolution is essentially, the DOT is saying they don't have jurisdiction over the FDR drive, and I think we acknowledge that. But I think Craig's statistics and what Craig and I were talking about at the kickoff meeting is that you can't really do an accurate study of York Avenue if you don't do a corresponding study of the FDR drive, because they just feed off of one another. And so there are some serious issues, and I think Craig has highlighted them very succinctly tonight, and that we need really both to make sure that we do an accurate assessment of the area.
Studying, if I can just say this, What you're talking about at the entrances and the exits of the drive, and that falls onto the streets. When you're talking about a comprehensive study of the FDR drive, you're talking about what's happening on the FDR drive. And it seems to me that you can do a very accurate study with suggestions when you come up with the statistics. If you just do the study of York,
no, I disagree.
Those streets.
Okay. I disagree, Michelle, because the accidents that are happening on York, the backups that are happening on York are a result of, look, I don't want to get into the weeds, but part of it is the fact that the exits and entrances to the FDR drive are not properly done.
Right, so that'll come up in the study of York Avenue.
Well, I don't know how it will if they're not going to look at the FDR drive.
But they're going to look at what's happening on those streets, are they not?
Well, they're not. I mean, you tell me, DOT. You said that you couldn't do that. So
not the drive, but the streets lead it. Like if they're looking at York and 73rd,
Michelle, if you're
aren't
on
you going to look at that?
Let's not talk over each other here. Come on, one at a time.
Sorry, if you're on 73rd Street going onto the drive, you tell me, DOT, at what point does your jurisdiction end and the FDR drive, who's going to make the recommendation how to fix the exits and the entrances off the FDR drive? Is that a DOT issue, or is that you working in conjunction with the state on the FDR drive?
Well, we typically work with state DOT. I can just tell you one case that we just had recently in Brooklyn for Exit 31 that we tried to solve for the community for like 4 or 5 years, and we couldn't. And eventually it moved to state DOT, and now they implemented a $10 million widening of the ramp. So we worked with them, we gave them our study, and on our suggestion, they reacted and they actually implementing the project. So this is how we work there.
See, here's the problem. We've been waiting over 10 years for your study. I don't want to wait another 3 years and then have to go back to the state to do a study to fix a problem that is happening every day and that is actually causing loss of life and, and horrible injuries. So you tell us, what's the best way to do it?
You can see I'm just highlighting, again, this matches up with my data, January 2020 through March 2025. Here's 79th Street and some of the crash and injury numbers. This is by the end of that ramp. And then you have, as approaching the exit at 74th Street, at 73rd Street. And these are very high numbers here.
Yeah.
You could just see what a problem we have. And they're most pronounced by all the entrances and exits.
Well, how about this? How about I make a motion to table my own motion until the DOT gets back to us and tells us what's, is that study going to be enough to persuade the people who run the FDR drive that they need to fix whatever needs to be fixed? I mean, this is a current and real problem right now. And in some ways you don't even really need a study. But anyway, motion to table till next.
You don't have to table. You can withdraw it.
Okay, I'll withdraw the motion because I know people are anxious to get to other matters. So.
All right. Okay. I don't think we need any further comments on this. I don't know whether what Judy has to say.
I would say let Judy speak and then we can move on.
Yeah, well.
Don't beat any dead horses here.
If there was a motion on the floor, I was going to add to it.
There's no motion on the floor.
But I'll make one separate from what Valerie was talking about, that the DOT does not study the 60s until the York Avenue Water Main and Sewer Project, as it is called, is completed. And if that means next December or March of 26, then so be it, because this is just the way this project has gone since 2015. They don't complete by any date they give us.
Is there a second to that motion? Rita seconds. Okay.
I'll just make ask Judy a question and ask if we need it to be the entirety of the 60s or if it could just be to 66, there were some intermediate points.
That's
Why
fine.
aren't you leaving it to DOT to decide whether they have enough information? You're going to wait another, if this takes another 5 years.
Chuck, this man just said that a lane wasn't blocked at 62nd Street, and unless they moved the blockage yesterday, it was there at last Friday when I was on York Avenue.
Okay.
So, I mean,
okay, let's just vote on this motion. If anyone objects,
I mean, or if you want to put it off until next month, that's fine too. But I just think we're
no,
being
let's just vote on it.
changed.
Let's just vote on it. Okay. Craig, you want to just count to make sure we have.
Let me read the roll. Myself, Chuck, Alita, John McClement, Judy, Michelle, Paul, Rita, Sebastian, Valerie.
Okay. Anyone who's in favor of this doesn't have to do anything. Anyone who's opposed should raise their hand.
You raised your hand.
I did. I'm opposed to it.
All right. So Chuck is a no.
Okay.
All right. Valerie?
I'm a no too.
Okay, so motion carries 8-2.
All right. We're next case is we want to get quickly an update on the delayed implementation of the Queensboro Bridge South Outer Roadway Pedestrian Pathway. Who's here who can do this?
If is there anyone from let me just introduce the topic, and then if there's someone from DOT to speak to it, that would be great. But basically the current situation is that you still have a shared bike ped path on the outer north outer roadway, and we've all come to the conclusion that it is immensely dangerous because it is a shared pathway. So just a quick review: back in January 2020, we asked for a study, that DOT study, the bridge to eliminate vehicular traffic on the south outer roadway and to convert it into a dedicated ADA accessible pedestrian walkway or bike route. It passed by a large margin, 34-4-1. And then in January 2021, New York City DOT announced it was planning to convert the south outer roadway into a dedicated pedestrian path and making the north outer roadway a dedicated two-way bike path. They presented to us in 2021, in May of 2021, and they originally announced a 2022 completion that was expected. They came back in April 2024 to this committee with a follow-up presentation, and they indicated that a late summer 2024 expected opening date was the new timing, and that was based on the necessary completion of the repairs to the upper roadway bridge decks before it could be implemented, and it also required completion of other elements. We did pass a resolution supporting the proposal at that point by a margin of 39-3. And then that 2024 summer completion was further delayed as per an article that was published in September. It was delayed due to the ongoing rehabilitation of the bridge's upper deck. So flash ahead to last month, the project appeared to be completed and ready to be open to the public, to the point where DOT was even putting together a ribbon cutting ceremony. Councilmember Julie Wan and the Queens was invited to it. And then suddenly that event was canceled. The New York Times and the Queens Eagle printed articles around March 22nd saying that this was no longer going to happen and that the opening was delayed. DOT then announced that the opening was being postponed. The Queens Eagle article said that the mayor's office claimed the postponement was called for because the mayor and his new deputy for operations had not been properly briefed on this project. But these articles indicated that the mayor's office and New York City DOT didn't really have their stories aligned. The mayor's office continued to claim there's no delay and that he needed to be briefed, but then they changed their story. And then New York City DOT claimed there was still more construction work to do and that they were without a precise timeline. New York City DOT Commissioner Rodriguez, according to the Queens Eagle, couldn't give a clear answer on timing At one point, he said this year. At another point, he said very soon. So here we are. It's the sixth delay of the project completion of the opening of the South Outer Roadway exclusive pedestrian walkway. And meanwhile, since 2022, there have been 19 crashes that have been reported on the share path with injuries, I believe it was. And I wanted to bring this up because timing is of the essence here. And I didn't know if maybe we want to just put out a resolution at this point in time saying we really need to see the immediate opening that New York City, whether it be the mayor's office and DOT, should stop playing games and just get this open in the name of pedestrian safety. And again, if anyone from New York City DOT can speak on this, it would be really appreciated, but this is really frustrating, especially to this board, since this is in our district and we have many people that use these pathways every day, and it is a critical safety issue.
Well, I have to say, Craig, what an excellent outline you put together. You really have hit the nail on the head there. Here's the thing with what happened is I know we did have the press conference and the ribbon cutting ceremony schedule, and that was postponed beyond our control. However, I want you to know that we are working closely to reschedule this. And I want to assure you that it will happen soon. I don't know the date yet, but as you're speaking, I'm sending an email to my colleagues to find out what the latest is, because this has to be coordinated with City Hall, as you know. I can't opine on what the articles mentioned, because I don't know, if a lot of the information provided is very factual. But rest assured that we are working to reschedule this, and that, I will get back to the board with a date as soon as possible.
Thanks, Colleen. Maybe you'll have something in your updates coming up, or someone will.
I will definitely let you know by next week. Okay.
Okay. So Craig, can we go on, or do you want to do more with this?
Well, it depends on whether anyone from wishes to speak and put forward any type of action. I'm not looking for this to be an extended discussion. I think we all know what the situation is now. There's nothing to debate. If someone wants to put forward a resolution, they can do that. Otherwise, we can move on.
You have two hands up, Judy and Sebastian.
Judy Schneider.
Oh, either a resolution, or I would ask our chair, Valerie, if she would write a letter to the mayor, because it's obviously the mayor who is holding this up, with the support of Community Board 8, and I think everybody would support it, for this change to go into effect as soon as possible. Very quickly, I will give you a story. When people who work for city agencies don't tell their bosses what's going on, this is precisely what happened. When St. Catherine's Park, as you look at it today, was redesigned, it came to the community board. It got 100% approval. The letter went to Commissioner Henry Stern, and he called his people in and he said, "Tell me about this. You haven't showed me any plans." They showed him the plans. He put them in a drawer, and we had to wait a year and vote on it all over again. And then the park was finally redone. So I think it's simply a question that DOT didn't communicate with the mayor. And I think if Valerie wrote a letter on behalf of the community board, that it might be very helpful.
I'm happy to do that.
Sebastian, can we recognize Sebastian?
I'm just saying I'm happy to offer a motion if that would be helpful, but if we think that they're all aligned for Valerie to send a letter and that's sufficient, I can withdraw that motion.
I mean, we have our existing resolution, right, Craig? So, I mean, it's not like we're not on record in supporting it. We've been waiting for it for a long time.
Why don't we try the letter? Unless Paul, Paul want to say something?
I was going to say, I fully support the letter as well. I think it'd be great to send that letter.
Okay. So why don't we, Valerie can write the letter then.
I think that's fine. I think the point is that we are doing something and being proactive about this and trying to be a leading voice on trying to move this forward.
Okay. Now, let's see, what's the next issue here? Oh, yes, number 5.
Yay!
Proposed New York City DOT rule to allow for the designation of areas of DOT pedestrian plazas and open streets for the exclusive use of private patrons, subject to certain restrictions in the review and approval of DOT. And there's an amendment to the rules relating to outdoor seating in pedestrian plazas. Is there someone from DOT that wants to, go over this here? Colleen, is there anyone here who's going to do this, or do you want us to launch into a discussion here?
You know what, from what I know, there is an upcoming, so what this is that the New York City Department of Transportation is proposing to amend Title 34 of the rules of the City of New York to authorize DOT's pedestrian plaza and open street partners through their concession agreements with DOT to permit their sub-concessionaries to designate areas of DOT pedestrian plazas and open streets for exclusive use by their patrons, subject to certain restrictions and the review and approval of DOT. I know there is a public hearing that's coming up. It's scheduled Wednesday, April 23rd at 10 a.m. I can share the link with Will and he can provide that to all of you. And there is I think there is a time that is permissible to offer feedback, and I believe it's April 16th. And we're recommending that those who want to provide feedback can use the portal to do so. But feel free to comment on this evening, and I will take back the suggestions that you have mentioned. So that's what this is about.
Okay, so why don't we take some public comments first on this? So far, I see a couple. Andrew Fine, or was it his cat who wants recognition?
Polly really wants to be recognized, and she appreciates your recognition. The DOT is proposing this planned rule change to increase the percentage of open streets that can be used for private businesses from 20% to 33% and as high as 50% at their discretion, of course. They will also allow their vendors to be able to subcontract the space for businesses. Nothing says corruption like taking of public space for private purposes and using a middleman to do it. The latter just amplifies the potential for corruption. Here's a list of the hot ideas that the DOT has come up with, feigning interest in feedback from the public, and just doing whatever the heck they want at the end of the day. Car share spaces. Remember that one? They said they were at the CB8 for feedback and proceeded to tell us they already picked and marked the spots. Most of these car share apps, by the way, were out of business within months of the paint being dried on these parking spots. Cargo e-bikes. The DOT had a Zoom that was attended by a dozen stakeholders. Those stakeholders were actually companies that build cargo e-bikes and want the contracts. And there were dozens of citizens that were nearly universally opposed to them. DOT subsequently decided that 10 feet long was just too short of a length limit and made it 16 feet, extended the width limit from 3 feet to 4 feet, and declared that a bicycle now included these baby box trucks with 4 wheels. How about battery charging lockers? Nobody aside from the bike lobby wants these things. They're plowing forward regardless of their potential to explode and spread shrapnel. There is a reason the DSNY removes garbage cans at times of threats. These lockers, not so much. How about the Central Park e-bike pilot? Again, CB8 resolved against this scheme. In June 2024, the pilot was extended with what? Absolutely zero public input. And they now, despite not having a permanent solution here, they are moving forward, dedicating 1/3 of the entire Central Park loop to high-speed e-bikes and e-scooters. Guess they'll just unilaterally renew the pilot or just say it's permanent regardless of the public's opinion. How about the recent retiming of 3rd Avenue traffic lights to impose a de facto 15-mile-per-hour speed limits on cars with the express purpose of making it easier for e-bikes to hit all the lights while people in cars, cabs, and buses all suffer? What am I missing here? In the meantime, let me just point out, it's been 4 years since the DOT removed alternate side street cleaning so that sweepers can access Lexington Avenue. The board resolved on this nearly 2 years ago, and the DOT finally piloted, I don't know why they piloted, because it was working up until they messed up Lexington Avenue during the pandemic, but they piloted twice-a-week cleaning on the west side of the avenue. I believe it was Colleen, we love you regardless, that shared the good news maybe 6 months ago, or was it longer, that this pilot would be extended to the east side of Lexington Avenue. And guess what? Still nothing. We have no clean streets. It's been over 4 years. Why can the DOT radically reimagine every street, every avenue, the Park Loop, the transverse, and the Upper East Side seemingly overnight, but they can't perform the basic functions like changing some street signs so that we can have clean streets on Lexington Avenue? Really? Let's get our priorities straight. I don't know what's up with this DOT, but it seems like they're working for e-bikes, for Uber, for DoorDash, for Uber Eats, but not for us, the rest of the people, the pedestrians, the people that are not on an e-bike or an e-scooter. And I would call for the DOT to please get Lexington Avenue straight. My email chain on this is so extensive. It goes back years. Ed Pinkar is no longer even with the DOT. I got that today. He was gone as of March 28th. Can we just change the street signs, clean the streets on Lexington Avenue? It's been 4 years, and stop reimagining stuff. Start reimagining doing your jobs. Thank you very much.
Next is Sandy. If you can identify give us your full name, Sandy. Unmute Sandy.
Yeah. Hello, Sandy Rayburn.
Thank you.
Good evening. I want to make the case that the new proposed rules amendment to Title 34 fails on 2 counts. Consider, please, that it is antithetical to what we claim to uphold, that public spaces must not be handed over by regulatory capture to for-profit and corporate interests, never mind being mismanaged by the Department of Transportation to oversee. First count, New York City's public spaces are being encroached on by private interests. Our sidewalks, our streets, and our parks are being given away by a city agency whose salaried employees are paid by us, the public. Edonis, the DOT commissioner, continues to cede New York City's residents' front yards to lobbying organizations, ceding our streets to transportation alternatives, to open plans, and yes, to the Hospitality Alliance. The idea that the DOT, through concession agreements, will permit their so-called sub-concessionaires to designate areas of pedestrian plazas and open streets, aka closed and gated streets, not unlike Birch Wathen in your neck of the woods, for exclusive use by their patrons is nothing less than Soviet-style oligarchy. Now, to the second count. It will flout the Americans with Disabilities Act in several specific ways, particularly in relation to equal access for individuals with disabilities. Under the ADA, all public spaces, including sidewalks and streets, must provide clear, unobstructed paths for individuals with disabilities. Arbitrary seating areas will most certainly make it difficult for individuals with disabilities to navigate, these areas safely. The proposed amendment will also reduce or restrict access to areas traditionally used for car drop-off zones and accessoride pickups, particularly near residential buildings, businesses, and community spaces. Exclusive I mean, I say that word and it sends chills down my spine. Exclusive seating areas extending into these zones effectively will block drop-off points or create obstacles for accessible parking. There is, by the way, in case you're not aware of it, a federal ADA lawsuit filed on behalf of several disabled individuals in 3 boroughs deprived of their equal civil and mobility rights, which argues that the gating on public streets in the Open Streets program flouts the law. This rules amendment will only exacerbate the dismissive and illegal stance which the DOT and the city has taken. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sandy. Any comments back, Colleen?
Sandy, did you say where in our district you live?
No, I didn't, but I'd be happy to tell you. I live in the hood, Fort Greene, and I'd be happy to tell you that I am a New Yorker and I am on the Upper East Side visiting family. So I feel like I have some skin in the game here.
Sandy, I just have to say, I love your attitude. You have such a positive attitude. Thank you so much for commenting on all those things that you just mentioned. Chuck, I cannot comment on most of this issue this evening because, again, I just shared with Will and I shared with you and Valerie and Craig the link where we are recommending folks to use to provide their feedback. This is something that I'm happy to share with you, Sandy. If you provide me with your email address, I'll share that information with you. So because we're gathering all the feedback that we're getting prior to the public hearing, which again is open to the public. It's a Zoom link on the 23rd. So we're collecting feedback from the public about this issue. And Will, thank you so much for sharing it. I just see that you did. But I'm taking note, Sandy. I'm taking note. So I'm going to make sure my colleagues get your concerns, that they're aware of it.
Okay. Next to Maxine de Seta. Can we unmute Maxine?
Maxine, look for a prompt on your device asking you to confirm unmuting.
There you go. Yeah, you're on, Maxine. Yes.
Thank you. As a victim of the wars with DOT from District CB7, the idea that we, the residents, the taxpayers of this city, who maintain the streets of this city, the highest tax people in the United States, as a matter of fact, that anything becomes privatized for the exclusive use of anybody, whether it's city bikes, whether it's some fantasy of enhancing space and taking away parking, is appalling. We on the west side on 103rd Street not only have fallen victim to enhancements, but our streets can no longer even be cleaned because of what has been allowed of calming efforts. We have boulders in the streets. We have two narrow streets now. Our emergency vehicles cannot even go down. They're supposed to have 15 feet wide, and we have been totally ignored. And the fact that we're going to take public plazas, and turn it over to private anything, whether it's an e-bike or I don't know, a concession stand. Our restaurants have enough time surviving in this city than being in competition with vendors. And I am assuming that vendors can come in on this amendment to vendors who pay very, very little for space. And I am not against street vendors. I eat from them all the time. But to purposely set aside public areas, plazas for private use. I don't know what DOT is thinking other than they are being, how can I say, bullied by Transalt because there's so much money there for all pimp. I don't know what's going on really, but we have had no satisfaction on the west side, and this sounds like an unmitigated disaster for the whole city to go this way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have some board members now who want to be recognized. Michelle Birnbaum first.
Yeah, firstly, brava Sandy and brava Maxine. What they said is absolutely true, absolutely the case. This is absolutely outrageous. But what I would like to know, Colleen, I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't know how much you know about this, but give me an example, if you could, of a space like this being used by a private enterprise. Do you have an example?
I don't know on the off of my head of of a space that's being privatized at the moment, but I do know that our public plazas, as you know, these spaces are maintained by the bids, right? And the bids, they are our maintenance partner, and they do have a concession agreement with us. Certain bids have a concession agreements with us about, with the space. And the concession agreement, what happens is that the revenues generated, of course, goes back to the maintenance of the plaza. So that's what this is. But I can't think of a location that I can tell you that's privatized or given to a private individual or an entity. Not at the moment, no.
All right. Well, I ask that because if you say it's the bit, for example, when Times Square had the plaza, it ended up being a place for food vendors. So that was clearly given over to whomever, and by contract or subcontract or whatever, it became a food truck plaza. When you have Broadway, there's a plaza at around just south of 59th Street. There are chairs there, but and that, yeah. So who does that come? Who owns that, and what are they allowed to put there?
Yeah, so let's backtrack a little bit. The food truck vendors, that's not part of this. Those food truck vendors, they get a permit from the what was known as the Department of Consumer Affairs. They or the Department of Mental Health and Hygiene. They issue permits to the food vendors. That's separate. That's a separate entity. They have nothing to do with the public plaza
I know.
space.
I'm chair of the vendor committee. I know that. But when Times Square was taken over, it was clearly after they had the plaza that some separate, and they may have a permit from DOH, but now that wasn't how they got to Times Square. But at any rate, that's then, and this is now. I'm trying to get a handle on this. I'm like, what does this open up to? I mean, if I'm a private person, what is it, 3 feet by 16 feet or 4 feet or 6 feet? I want to have a party. Can I rent that space?
This is not, I don't think this is how the rule change is intended to be used. Because with the plaza space, if you want to have a program event in that space, you would have to secure a permit from the Mayor's Office of Street Activity, which is SAPO. And you would also have to get permission from the bid, which is our maintenance partner. So I think there is some misconception with this rule. And again, I don't know the depths of the rule because this is handled by our public realm. That's why I provided the link that with the questions that you have, you can put those questions in the email that I sent that I just shared. But in the interim, I will take back the concerns that you are raising and others are raising as well, Michelle.
Okay. The overriding issue is you're privatizing public space for the financial benefit of a few. But clearly questions need to be answered, so.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, Alita Camp is next, I believe. Alita?
Thanks, Chuck. Hi, Colleen. I don't even have words to express how bad I think this idea is. For the reasons that Sandy and the other speaker had mentioned, for the idea that what are emergency vehicles supposed to do when they don't have access on another street and the traffic is diverted to adjacent streets because there is no access through them? You're sacrificing safety of residents, of people and businesses for the profit of some to use what actually is a public space. And for all of the people who want to get cars off the street, you're replacing them with tables and chairs in a way that's not moving clearly and that's not benefiting the people around them. Only people paying money now are going to be able to use these exclusive areas for the benefit of a concessionaire on our public streets when our streets are so crowded. And at the same time, the city of Yes aims to bring in more housing, which will bring in more traffic, which will bring in more trucks, more bikes, more cars, more school buses. And you're closing off streets that have access to all of this. The disabled, we've had issues about, or comments, lots of comments about disabled access for the street in front of the Allen Stevenson School on 78th Street, with doctors in those houses talking about how patients might not be able to get dropped off and they may not be disabled for, again, for emergency vehicles. This just, it makes no sense to me, with all due respect, Colleen. I know it's not you, obviously, but it's an idea that is intended, it seems, to benefit some lobbying groups and some private interests at the expense of all of the rest of us. And at a time when New York is getting crowded, more crowded and denser, and we have lack of green space, it just makes no sense to set it aside as something that's exclusive. I think I may be mixing up a lot of concepts here, but it's just wrong. The open street concept is supposed to benefit everybody, and this shuts it off in a way that benefits just a few. So I am obviously extremely opposed to this. I do intend to submit comments at the hearing or in advance of it, but I just can't express how wrong this seems to be for the people of the city. Thank you. I will stop there. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank
And
you, Alita.
Alita, again, I encourage everyone who's making comments to please attend the scheduled Zoom hearing on the 23rd.
Okay. Rita Popper's next. Rita, can we unmute Rita?
I just want to say that with Dave Rosenstein, it took us 4 years to get East 91st Street, James Cagney Place, a dedicated public plaza. And we did that. And of course, we share it with Citibank. And I must say that the Arts Committee of Community Board 8 uses that street magnificently for community people who come and sell whatever they want to sell. Half of that street, I'm almost tired of saying this. The upper half of the street has halogen lights. The lower half of the street has incandescent lights. Why? Because they just walked away and they didn't finish the job. However, the incandescent lights are now out. Not every single one, but most of them are. And I can't seem to convince the DOT to come and finish the job as if I was going to have a wedding and I needed you to light it for me. This is for people. We have enormous trees. It's a beautiful street. And people sit on benches when the weather is hot, they sit out there very late. They should be safe in a lit street. So, Colleen, I know this is not new to your ears. I could not let this go without saying anything.
And Rita, we've worked in the past where we did restore the lighting. Is it recently that it went out?
No, the lighting was only restored from the midpoint to the top of the hill. The bottom of the hill has different lighting, has the same lighting that they had 55 years ago.
Okay. I will give you a call tomorrow and we'll have a conversation about that.
Thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Rita. Sebastian is next. Can we unmute Sebastian?
Thank you, Chuck. I'd like to propose a resolution in support of the DOT's proposed rule change and speak to it if seconded.
Is there a second? Paul Crickler is seconding. Okay. Go ahead, Sebastian.
Thanks. The way that I read this when I look through the documents the DOT has provided about this rule change is that this basically allows restaurants to have tables and chairs on an open street plaza and to reserve those tables and chairs for the exclusive use of the people dining at the restaurant. And then any revenue that is generated that goes to the open street operator must be used for maintaining the plaza. This to me seems like a good thing that allows our city to have more people able to eat outside if they want and raise more funds for maintaining our outdoor public spaces. This keeps a limit at the upper bound of how much of that space can be used for these activities while still retaining the majority of the space for completely free public use. I think this is a great thing for our city, and I hope we can get it implemented soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. Next is Valerie Mason. Valerie, unmute Valerie.
Oh, am I? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't even put the button. I'm sorry, Sebastian, I disagree with you on so many levels. I think back to when we looked at the open streets rulemaking that was undertaken by DOT, and this was exactly how we envisioned this evolving. And I think Andrew points to how these things have progressed and evolved. And when we talked about being able to close a street with a sponsor. And I remember making this comment to Colleen saying, down the road, you'll be literally, no pun intended, be trying to privatize the open street for profit making. And everybody was like, oh, no, that's never going to happen. Well, here we are tonight talking about this. And part of the problem in the summary is talking about how whatever sub-concessionaire, and there's not, it doesn't say that the DOT is going to approve the sub-concessionaire. It talks about the concessionaire approving the sub-concessionaire. And then it talks about how anything that's going to be in this public plaza or open street is exempted from the dining laws and our ability to regulate what we would normally be able to regulate in terms of sidewalk cafes and extensions of the street. It doesn't talk about having to be able to provide a bathroom. It doesn't talk about having to have a minimum maintenance crew intact. And by the way, I don't even want to bring up the ugly word of enforcement, but who's going to enforce this? I mean, this just seems like another DOT plan gone, just amok. And I have to say, I really am seeing a pattern here by the Adams administration in the last months, perhaps, of the Adams administration to put through a bunch of legislation and rulemaking that nobody else is really aware of. I think Sebastian, I think the intent seems like a good idea, but the way that this is being promulgated and heard is just not really a true due process. I mean, when it says, they did a pilot program in 2020. Well, that really wasn't much of a pilot program because we found ourselves in COVID almost immediately. And so that program isn't really, I don't think, representative of what this would say. And the other thing is, Colleen, take this back. I don't think that the proposed rule clarifies that any exclusive seating authorized by a concession agreement would not be considered a sidewalk or roadway cafe and therefore would not require a license and revocable consent. Not only are you privatizing these public plazas and streets, you're basically saying that you're taking them out of the normal regulation of the rest of the agencies that are supposed to govern these things. I think this is really a real stretch and should honestly not be within the purview of, and it doesn't, I see what you're saying, Sebastian, about maintenance, but it doesn't talk about minimum amounts that need to be charged. It doesn't seem like the city is going to get any money from it. And, you know, this is basically a private taking without compensation. And I thought that wasn't allowed in the United States of America, but you know, it's maybe it is, and I didn't catch it on the after the liberation speech today. But I don't really think that we can support this, and I would have to vote against your motion. Sorry.
Alita Camp.
Thank you. I think there's also a difference between the plazas and the open streets. I don't understand the whole plaza concept. My comments were really directed towards the open streets. I think Valerie is 1,000% correct on all of this. It's without enforcement, and we know enforcement is lax. There's a restaurant on Amsterdam Avenue in the low 80s that has tables spread out on the sidewalk in front of a community garden and playground. And I thought that stuff is not allowed. And yet there they are, at least 7 to 10 tables are sitting out there on Amsterdam. For months, it's been like this and nothing happens. So we can't count on enforcement. We can't count on egalitarian use of the space, which will no longer be public because it will be private. We can't count on cleanliness or following any rules, such as not using amplified sound or TV sets or whatever is not allowed out there. It just seems like a land grab of the opposite of eminent domain, of public space for private use at the expense of all of that. I raised my hand again because of the confusion between the open streets and the plazas. And open streets are using a street that's normally accessible to cars for closing it off for kids at school or for some other reason. And so my comments were directed about the people who normally rely on that, such as the disabled and emergency vehicles and people going home and people with small kids and people who are patients at the doctor's offices that are primarily located in private buildings, and not being able to do that. So again, listening to everyone, I just want to scream with megaphones my applause for what Valerie has said and just hope that this thing dies on the vine. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Rita.
To disapprove.
We haven't voted yet.
Pardon me?
No, we haven't voted yet. Are you?
I know, but
are you putting a substitute motion up? Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second to that? Sorry, okay. Okay, Alita seconds. Go ahead. You want to say anything further, Rita?
I'd like to call a question.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Let's see where we get. Michelle.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, there are a lot of complaints of activities that are more and more being done on the streets, like the open streets. When a street is declared an open street, in my mind, a closed street, there have been a lot of complaints about residents who live on those streets. The noise, those streets are allowed to remain in that way up until 11 o'clock at night. And there's no time limit on this plaza, and whatever the differentiation is between plaza and open street, the overriding concern is the same. You're bringing more and more activity into the streets. Some people, to my mind, misguided, think that that's really a great thing. Like we should all be living in a bazaar. Everybody should be on the streets, eating on the streets, on the open streets. You can have magicians, you can have chalk for, things for kids on the street. Each group of people can have as many as 10 chairs. So you can have as many groups of 10 that you can put on that street, or even more. The only proviso is that they have a chair per person. They can have as many people as they want. There have been a lot of complaints about this, and we don't see that anywhere. And with the open dining coming back online now, if you've noticed in the street, in the applications, they are now all conditional approvals. Why? Because the DOT originally was supposed to give approval to a restaurant in order for that restaurant to have a cafe license. They were so overwhelmed with the applicants and with the lack of enough staff that they had to conditionally approve all of these cafes prior to them actually opening. Now, does anybody think here that there is enough enforcement staff? They don't have the budget for it at the DOT to be in charge of all of these programs. They're in charge of everything. They're in charge of giving the licenses. They're in charge of the enforcement. It's not possible.
But look,
yes, Chuck?
Could we just move this along? Rita's got a motion on the floor. Does anybody?
Yes, I was speaking to it.
I understand, but how about why don't
I know
we vote
you
on
understand.
Let's vote on it. We've heard the arguments. I think they're fairly clear. Let's vote on this, okay? Craig, call the roll. If people who are here, see if everybody's still here.
All right. Myself, Chuck, Alita, John, Judy, Michelle, Paul, Rita, Valerie.
And Judy's away from her computer. She has the hourglass.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me
go ahead.
I just want to make sure that I see who has since left the meeting from before. Someone did. All right, I'll figure it out.
Okay. Okay, so this is a motion to disapprove, a substitute motion. All in favor of that, you don't have to do anything. Any opposed should raise their hand at this point, or abstaining or not voting for another purpose. Sebastian?
I vote no.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm also a no.
Okay. Paul?
And I'm a no, please.
Okay. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Okay, I think that's approved. Motion to disapprove is approved. Okay. Updates, Colleen, do you have any updates for us?
Sure. So I want to let you know that we approved the no standing anytime regulatory sign for the Rupert Yorkville Towers. So those signs the orders were submitted to our sign shop, so we'll get those scheduled accordingly. The other thing Andrew mentioned, the alternate side street cleaning rule regulations. If we were to do that on Lexington Avenue and expand it, we would need a resolution from the community board, of course, because we would have to coordinate that with the Department of Sanitation and their street cleaning operations in that
I thought
area.
we already passed a resolution on that.
I think it's only, I believe the resolution is not for the entire quarter, if I'm not mistaken, but I will take a look at it.
I think
and
it
I will
was.
see.
I'm pretty sure it was.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Try to pull it up quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Can you pull it up real quickly?
Go
Let's
ahead.
confirm that. Yeah.
Anything else, Colleen, before we?
And that's it. And the other thing is that I'm passing the baton to my colleague, Rafael Escano, who's on the call. So Rafael will be attending the monthly meetings moving forward.
Well, we thank you, Colleen.
Right.
We welcome Rafael.
And I've pulled it up. Sorry, and thank you, Colleen. And I was going to say thank you for all of your service and everything you've done for us over the how many years has it been at this point?
Oh geez, I can't even count. I can't remember.
It's been a while.
She's not. This is Rafael. She's not going anywhere.
Oh, I know, but just for the service that she's provided to this district.
Around.
Yeah.
She can
But-
turn in her bulletproof vest though.
And and for most of you who don't know, Borough Commissioner Pinkar has left the agency. Well, former Borough Commissioner Edward Pinkar has left the agency. He's now the president of the Fifth Avenue Association.
Craig, did you get that motion? I mean, that resolution?
I did. I just put it in the chat, but I will read from it. So this is
Please.
passed in July 2023. Therefore, be it resolved, the Community Board 8 requests New York City DOT change parking regulations along Lexington Avenue between 59th and 96th Street to incorporate appropriate street sweeping or no standing regulations to allow street sweepers to clean the street on a regular basis.
Okay, great. So we will
We
coordinate
can
that with
send that.
Department of
We can
Sanitation.
send that back to you again if you want.
Yeah, Will can send it to me. He'll send that back to
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Thanks.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything further here? Andrew, fine, wanted something? Go ahead, Andrew.
I thought it was good news 6 months ago that the east side of Lexington Avenue was going to be cleaned. I wonder what happened to that. And further, thank you so much, Colleen, for putting up with me and every grouch on the Upper East Side with regards to everything DOT. Thank you so much. We don't really necessarily agree with everything that the DOT is doing, but you have been amazing in your feedback and being so responsive. Thank you so much. And hopefully that will also extend to the east side of Lexington Avenue.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Well spoken. Valerie? Go ahead. You have to unmute.
Hi, I just want to thank Colleen, especially remembering our little jaunt to 3rd Avenue and 72nd Street one very cold day. Raphael, welcome. Chuck and Craig run a great meeting. This is not how these meetings usually run in terms of length, so please don't be nervous about coming back. I did have one.
Not at all.
But I did have one request based off our kickoff meeting, and that was, it was noted by you guys that the mirror that used to be at the 73rd Street entrance to the drive was no longer there. And it was mentioned that the reason it was no longer there was because it was sideswiped by one of the cars coming on or off. But I would just ask, I know that it got sideswiped, but it does serve a function. And so I would request that somebody buy another one and put it up. It might last longer than we think, and it would do, who knows whether there would be some correlation between fewer accidents over there and not if it was back in place. So I would just ask that you consider that.
Thank you. Makes sense. Okay. Alita Camp.
I also would like to thank Colleen and welcome Raphael, but I'm not you guys, so I won't say that really. But I just wanted to note, if we're up to new business, that I saw a carting company truck just blithely riding down the bus lane as though it was its own private road map. And it was really disturbing because it was going fast. It wasn't, and it was blinking left, which I don't know if it was deliberate or if it was intending to look like if it got stopped that it was actually trying to move into the a left car and truck lane. So I don't know what to do about it, but it because of the size and the speed and I think the proclivity of carting trucks to get into accidents with people, that it's something that should be looked at, is the use of bus lanes for non-bus traffic, especially after 8 at night. It was, I think, coming back from a board meeting, or 9 at night when traffic is much thinner. Thank you.
Hopefully the bus lane cameras that they're doing will help out in that, Alita, because I know those are problems that continue with some of those carts. You're absolutely right. Carting companies and others.
Thanks, Chuck.
Okay, let's see. Alex Saralegu is, can we unmute Alex? And his wife, I assume, or.
Hi, everyone. This is our first meeting, but very, very fascinating. We just wanted to raise the issue of, so we're on the corner of 93rd and Lex, And Con Edison has been doing work on the gas line for about 8 months now in the exact same spot. Understand that obviously, like, gas lines need to be replaced, but the main issue is that the work that they're doing is in the bus lane. So I would say, like, as frequently as 30 seconds, there is a bus that goes over it and it sounds like a bomb is going off. And the first holes were drilled into the ground in mid-September of 2024. And then in December of 2024, they were briefly filled in for about 2 weeks. And then the first week of January, after they'd been refilled and then repainted, drilled again. And then this is when, we had reached out to 311 a few times, and then we finally got put in touch with our community board member, and we reached out to Kevin Wu, and I think he's on vacation right now. So he was great. I sent him a ton of photos and videos just because it's incredibly loud, and it just wakes us up every morning at 4 a.m. And then he talked to the Con Ed connection that the community board has, and they said that it would be done at the end or beginning of March. They filled everything in. They painted it all over with the crosswalk and the new pink on the bus lane. And then 2 weeks later, they jackhammered it all up all over again. And now we have all new plates in the exact same spot for the third time. And again, it's like, what's frustrating is, again, like, I know that work needs to be done, but they will work on it and then there will be no work for 2 weeks. And we just have to listen to the bus driving over the plates every minute of every day. So it's just incredibly frustrating. And then we just talked to them right now and they said, yeah, it's going to be at least, 3 more months so at that rate, like, it will have been, 10 months that we're listening to this noise constantly. And we were hoping that we could reach out to the Con Edison, contact to just try to expedite this one area, because there were plates all over. I think I counted 26 plates that were on 93rd Street, and we didn't care about any of those. They're obviously ugly, but those, at least, like, cars are driving over, so it's not loud. It's really just the one in the bus lane that is it sounds like a bomb is going off, like, every 30 seconds.
And especially at night when there isn't as much traffic, they pick up speed, and it is a quality of life issue where we can't sleep in the middle of the night. And we thought it was finally fixed. It was painted. We thought we could finally rest. We had 2 weeks of solace.
Yeah.
And then on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m., we heard drilling, went outside, and they were doing the exact same spot that we had been dealing with for 7 months.
Which had been freshly paved and painted. So that's just and then I just did a lot on Andrew's point. Our 93rd Street also just hasn't been cleaned, in the year that we've lived here. So since they finished paving 93rd, but there's been no street cleaning and no cars have moved. There's just piles of garbage that we've actually taken garbage bags out and picked up the garbage ourselves. A lot of it's left over, I think, from Con Edison workers and construction workers, but
Yes. So anyways, we've gone down any avenue, and we're brand new to this meeting, but we thought this could be a place for us to voice our complaints and communicate how frustrated we are by the lack of progress in something that we felt could have been done more quickly. And we're really disappointed that it's continuing on and on and on, seemingly without resolve.
Thank you for coming in. We need to, I think we need to, Will or somebody, we need to get a hold of Con Edison, and if they can't get it done, right away, they should do something about a plate. You shouldn't have a plate that's so loud that the bus. We had that with the Second Avenue subway, and we did get them to fix some of those plates. So when the traffic went over them, it didn't make that kind of sound and keep people awake. So they at least should fix any plate that they put down, regardless of their timing on this project. And
absolutely, Alex. And I know Colleen's heard from me many times over the last decade about loose plates, and between her office and our office, we'll team up on Con Ed to make sure that they're securing this plate in the bus lane. So
Definitely. And I do remember this one because Kevin did email it to me and we notified Con Ed. And what we do, because we're the first to go out there and inspect manhole covers and we notify the utility companies. And we did issue a corrective action request to Con Ed to secure those plates. And I believe they did do that, but again, with the buses and other vehicles traveling on in the roadway on the plates, they tend to shift. So what I will do, I'll request another inspection in the morning, and we'll notify Con Ed. Will and I will work on that, and we'll have them go out there ASAP to secure the plates and to clean the area, make sure that they pick up their garbage.
I do wonder though if it's the plates themselves because they're so large. Because it's been months and months when we've seen buses go over them, they've sealed them around the edges. So it looks like it's sealed and they've done their due diligence, but they bend under pressure because it's in the bike lane.
The buses are so heavy and it's just
The buses. Yeah, it's because they're traveling. It's because buses are traveling on the plates and they're going to shift a bit. That's why it's going to create like a thump noise. I'm sure that's what you're hearing constantly.
And it
Yeah.
reverberates all down our street, probably at night. I mean, at least 30 times an hour, if not more. And I can't
Yes,
imagine.
Will and I will reach out to Con Ed. We will definitely do that. Can you remind me what the location is?
Yeah, it's the corner of 93rd and Lex. So it's in the bus line on Lex. And then the new holes now are in the same spot, but now, in between 93rd and 92nd. And our main ask is just, it's not to secure the plates. It's like, if they could just expedite
the work that they're doing.
Just because it's the bus lane. Like, again, 93rd Street had plates all over it, but like we didn't care about that because it's just cars, so it's not loud. Like the bus is it's so loud. And it's like we just have not slept through the night besides the last 2 weeks. And
We'll find out the timeline of when they're going to wrap up the work. And we'll be in touch with you.
We have Alex's contact information, Will. Can you maybe
Alex, did you give your email address when you signed in?
Yes, I did. And then
either way, Kevin has your email address, right? So
yeah, he does.
Okay,
cool.
Can I just ask maybe Colleen, in the interim, can someone put blockades around the plate so the bus actually has to go around it as an intermediary? These poor people haven't slept in months. And it looks like Con Ed has to do their job all over again. I mean, especially at night, there shouldn't be that much traffic that the bus can't go around the plates if you put something up as a barrier.
So it's not even putting barriers around the work area. If we were to do that or permit that, that would probably create more traffic congestion during the day. I would have to find out. And again, Con Ed would have to amend their permits. They would have to amend their permits with DOT to permit that. So let me see what we can do.
How about doing it as your final act for us to?
I want to do that for you, Valerie. Okay. But Will and I will work through it. We'll sort it out and we'll get back to you, Michael.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
You have one more hand up from the public.
Oh, sorry. Apologies.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex. I meant to say Alex. We'll get back to you, Alex.
Hi, Colleen. Thank you so much for dealing with us for the past 10 years. I'm a little new to this, but and just one final question. I know you said you would get back to us on the 3rd Avenue light retiming thing. Do we have an answer to that yet?
So the light retiming is permanent and it is going to remain. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Does Julie Menon know that?
Yes, she does know that. I believe we sent a letter to her.
Is there a reason we didn't get copied on that? Because we asked the same question, Colleen.
I believe I have to double check, but I think we sent a letter. If not, I will find out. But I'll double check that, Valerie.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, like, I know Julie sent a letter as well on like all the like requesting, hey, do we have the data and how the pilot went? Because it seems like it was like it's like a 2 month thing. I was just wondering if we had the data on that, just because you guys said you would give that to us. Just because as somebody who lives right next to it, I hear incessant honking all day. And I know I called Julie Menon's office and she's gotten dozens and dozens of calls about it as well.
Dylan, we'll find out about the data. I'll inquire about that, and we'll get back to you to the board on that. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you, Colleen, and thank you for your
You're
service.
welcome.
Motion?
Is there a second? I see Michelle's hand. All right. I guess good night, everyone. Thank you for enduring a long meeting, and we'll see you next month, and we will be voting on these at our full board meeting 2 weeks from today.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone, and thank you again, Colleen.